Hello, friends. Welcome to the Sleep Aliens. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Have you ever been on a border road at 3 in the morning? I mean, really there, where the nearest gas station is 45 miles behind you, and the only thing accompanying you is the sound of your engine and the endless asphalt road splitting the Sonora Desert in two. That's exactly where I was when I saw it. My name is Miguel Navarro, and I've been working as a Border Patrol agent for the Bureau of Land Management for 6 years. What I'm about to tell you happened last September, and I still can't explain it. My partner, Riley Cortez, and I were on a routine night patrol on Highway 85 south of Gila Bend, Arizona. If you've never been there, imagine this: miles of flat desert, a landscape that makes you feel like you're on another planet even in daylight. At night, it's a completely different world. The stars are so bright they hurt your eyes to look at, and the darkness between them is so deep it makes you understand why ancient people feared the night. Riley had been my partner for about 8 months at that point. Good guy, former Marine, didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. He was the one driving that night, which turned out to be important later. I was riding shotgun, scanning the darkness with our mounted spotlight, looking for anything unusual. We weren't specifically looking for UFOs, obviously. Our job was to watch for illegal border crossings, abandoned vehicles, anything that seemed out of place in that vast emptiness. It was 3:17 a.m. when Riley first spotted it. I remember the exact time because I was looking at my phone, checking a text from my wife asking when I'd be home. Riley's voice cut through the silence of the cab. "Miguel, look at that." His tone wasn't alarmed, just curious. The kind of voice you use when you see something your brain can't quite process yet. I looked up from my phone and followed his gaze through the windshield. There it was, about a quarter mile ahead of us, maybe 200 feet off the ground, hovering perfectly still over the highway. A single white light. Not bright enough to hurt your eyes, but bright enough that you couldn't miss it. It wasn't moving, wasn't swaying, just hanging there in the air like someone had pinned a star to the sky. "What do you think?" Riley asked, slowing the truck down to about 30 miles per hour. "Could be a drone," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I didn't believe them. I've seen plenty of drones. They move. They have multiple lights. They make noise. This was different. This was silent, completely, utterly silent. Riley brought the truck to a full stop about 100 yards from the light. We sat there for maybe 30 seconds, just watching it. The light didn't flicker, didn't pulse. It just hung there with an unnatural stillness that made my stomach feel weird. "You getting this on the dash cam?" I asked. Riley leaned forward, checking the camera mounted to our windshield. "Yeah, it's recording." I grabbed our handheld camera from the console between us. We're supposed to document anything unusual we see out here, and this definitely qualified. I powered it on, pointed it through the windshield at the light, and hit record. Through the viewfinder I could see the road, the dark desert on either side, the stars above. But the light wasn't there. I lowered the camera and looked with my naked eyes. The light was still there, clear as day. I raised the camera again. Nothing. "Riley, you seeing this?" "Seeing what?" "The camera's not picking it up." Riley glanced at me, then back at the light. "What do you mean it's not picking it up? It's right there." "I know it's right there, but look." I turned the camera's screen toward him so he could see. Empty road, empty sky. No light. For the first time that night, I heard something in Riley's voice that I'd never heard before. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. That's not right, man. That's not right at all. I set the camera on the dashboard, still recording, and we both just stared at the light. That's when I noticed something else. The inside of our truck cab was getting brighter. Not like someone was shining a flashlight on us, but like the ambient light level was slowly increasing. It was subtle at first, but after a few seconds I could see it clearly. The white light from outside was somehow reflecting off every surface inside the truck, even though it was still 100 yards away. Miguel, I don't like this. Riley's hand moved to the gear shift. I think we should... That's when the radio started acting up. We had a two-way radio system in the truck, standard issue for BLM patrol. It had been silent all night except for the occasional check-in from dispatch. Now it was making this sound, this low-frequency hum that seemed to vibrate through my chest. It wasn't static. Static is chaotic, random. This was steady, rhythmic almost, like someone was holding down a button on the other end. Base, this is Unit 12, do you copy? Riley reached for the radio handset. But before he could grab it, the humming stopped. Just cut off completely. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. The light was still there. Still hanging. Still watching. I need you to understand something about being out in the desert at night. There's this feeling you get sometimes, this primal instinct that tells you you're being watched. Usually it's nothing, just your brain playing tricks on you because you're alone in a big empty space. But this was different. This wasn't paranoia. This was the absolute certainty that something was observing us, studying us, and we were completely at its mercy. We need to report this, I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Riley nodded slowly, not taking his eyes off the light. Report what, exactly? That we're seeing a light that our cameras can't pick up? That our radio's going haywire for no reason? He had a point. We both knew how this would sound. But protocol was protocol. I reached for my personal cell phone to take a photo. When I raised it up and opened the camera app, same thing as before. Through the screen, the light wasn't there. I could see the stars, the road, everything else. Just not the light. This is insane, I muttered, lowering my phone. Yeah, Riley agreed. Yeah, it is. We sat there for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. Then, without any warning, without any sound or movement, the light simply vanished. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. Not like it flew away or dimmed out. It just ceased to exist. The inside of the truck went dark again. The only light now came from our dashboard and the stars above. The radio was quiet. Everything seemed normal again, except for the fact that Riley and I were both sitting there with our hearts hammering in our chests, trying to process what we'd just witnessed. Did that just... I started to say. Yeah. Riley's voice was tight. I looked down at my phone to check the time, thinking maybe we should document exactly how long we'd been stopped. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The time on my phone read 3:23 a.m. Riley, what time do you have? He glanced at the truck's dashboard clock, then at his watch. His face went pale. 3:23. That's not possible, I said, even though I knew it was. We'd stopped at 3:17. We'd been sitting there for maybe 5 minutes, 6 at most. But somehow, according to every clock we had, 6 minutes had become more than 6 minutes. 3 minutes were just gone. Riley and I looked at each other in the dim green glow of the dashboard lights. Neither of us said anything for a long moment. What was there to say? Let's get out of here, Riley finally said, and I didn't argue. He put the truck in drive and we continued down Highway 85, neither of us speaking. I kept looking out the window, scanning the sky, but the light didn't come back. The desert was just desert again, dark and empty and normal. About 10 miles down the road, Riley broke the silence. "We're going to have to file a report about this." "I know. They're going to think we're crazy." "I know that too." We drove in silence for another few minutes. Then Riley said something that's stuck with me ever since. "Miguel, what if it's still there? What if it's still watching us? We just can't see it anymore." I didn't have an answer for that. Still don't. When we got back to the station at the end of our shift, around 6 a.m., we did file a report. We described everything we'd seen: the light, the camera malfunction, the radio interference, the missing time. Our supervisor, a guy named Tom Hendricks who'd been with BLM for 20 years, listened to the whole thing with a completely neutral expression. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You boys been getting enough sleep." "Sir, we know how this sounds," I started, but he held up a hand. "I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm just saying this is above my pay grade. I'll file it with regional, they'll file it with whoever they file it with, and that'll probably be the end of it. My advice? Don't go talking about this around the station. People hear you saw a UFO. They're going to look at you different." He was right, of course. But what was I supposed to do? Pretend it didn't happen? Riley and I didn't talk about it much after that. Not because we didn't want to, but because what was there to say? We'd both been there. We'd both seen it. We'd both felt that same inexplicable dread, that certainty that we were in the presence of something that shouldn't exist, something that operated by rules we couldn't begin to understand. About a week later, I got a call from someone who identified themselves as being from the regional office. They asked me a series of questions about the incident. Very specific questions. What color was the light? How high off the ground? Did I hear any sounds? Did I feel any physical sensations? Did I have any headaches or nausea in the days following the sighting? I answered everything honestly. The person on the other end of the line didn't sound surprised by any of my answers. They didn't sound skeptical either. They just took notes, thanked me for my time, and hung up. I never heard from them again. Riley got a similar call. When we compared notes later, we realized they'd asked us almost identical questions. Whoever these people were, they had a script. They knew exactly what they were looking for. That should have been the end of it. We saw something strange. We reported it. Some government people asked some questions. Case closed. But it wasn't the end, not even close. About 2 weeks after the initial sighting, Riley and I were assigned to the same patrol route again. Night shift, same stretch of Highway 85. Neither of us mentioned the incident, but I know we were both thinking about it. You don't forget something like that. It was around 2:45 a.m. when things started getting weird again. We were about 15 miles from where we'd seen the light the first time when the radio started making that same low-frequency hum. Riley and I locked eyes immediately. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Not again," he said quietly. The humming continued for about 30 seconds, then stopped abruptly. We waited, barely breathing, scanning the sky through the windshield. No light, at least not yet. "Maybe it's just a malfunction," I offered, not believing it myself. "Yeah, maybe," Riley said, not believing it either. We continued driving, both of us on high alert. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every distant light from a ranch or cell tower made my heart skip. The normal sounds of the truck, the engine, the tires on the asphalt, all seemed too loud in the tense silence. Then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., I saw it in the side mirror. A white light maybe half a mile behind us, hovering over the road at about the same height as before. Riley. Behind us. He checked his rearview mirror and immediately pressed harder on the gas. The truck accelerated, but the light didn't fall behind. It didn't get closer either. It just maintained the same distance, following us down that empty desert highway like a patient predator. "What do we do?" Riley's voice was strained now, the calm military composure starting to crack. "Just keep driving. Get us to the junction with Highway 8. There'll be more traffic there." It was still 15 minutes to the junction. 15 minutes of driving with that thing following us. I grabbed the handheld camera again, turned around in my seat, and pointed it out the back window. Same as before, I could see the light with my eyes, but through the camera there was nothing. Just an empty road disappearing into darkness. The radio hummed again. This time it was louder, and there was something else underneath it. A rhythm, almost like Morse code, but not quite. Short bursts and long bursts in a pattern I couldn't decipher. "Miguel, I swear to God, if that thing comes any closer, just drive, Riley. Just keep driving." The light stayed behind us for exactly 8 minutes. I know, because I was watching the dashboard clock the whole time, terrified that we'd lose time again. At 3:25 a.m., the light simply vanished, just like before. 1 second it was there in the mirror, the next it was gone. But this time, something was different. This time, I felt it when it disappeared. It's hard to explain, but it was like a pressure I hadn't noticed was there suddenly lifted. Like someone had been pressing down on my chest, and I'd gotten so used to it that I only noticed when they stopped. Riley felt it too. I could see his shoulders relax, see him take a deep breath. "It's gone," he said. "Yeah. Miguel, we can't keep doing this route." "I know." We drove straight back to the station, even though we still had 4 hours left on our shift. When we walked into Tom Hendrick's office at 4 a.m., he took one look at our faces and knew something had happened. "It came back," I said simply. Tom sighed, rubbed his eyes, and reached for his phone. "I'm calling regional right now. You two are being reassigned." "Reassigned to where?" Riley asked. "Anywhere but Highway 85. And that's what happened. As of the next week, Riley and I were moved to daytime patrols in a completely different sector, way up north near the Painted Desert. We haven't been back to that stretch of Highway 85 since. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. About a month after our last encounter, I was having a beer with a guy from another patrol unit, someone who'd been working the southern routes for a decade. I asked him, casual as I could, if he'd ever seen anything weird out on Highway 85. He got real quiet. Then he leaned in close and said, "You saw the white light, didn't you?" I didn't confirm or deny it, didn't have to. He nodded slowly and said, "You're not the first. Won't be the last. That thing's been out there for years, maybe longer. They don't like us talking about it, but we all know. We all know something's out there." I wanted to ask him more, but he stood up, dropped a 20 on the bar, and walked out. Haven't seen him since. So that's my story. That's what happened to me and Riley Cortez out on Highway 85 south of Gila Bend, Arizona. I still work for the Bureau of Land Management. I still do night patrols, just not on that particular stretch of road. And every time I'm out there in the desert darkness, every time I see a distant light that might be a ranch or might be a cell tower, or might be something else entirely, I remember that feeling. That absolute certainty that I was in the presence of something beyond my understanding. Something that watched and waited and knew I was there. The dash cam footage? The agency has it, or says they do. Riley and I were never allowed to review it. The handheld camera I was using recorded the whole thing, audio at least. When I reviewed it later, that low-frequency hum was there, clear as day. But here's the creepy part. There were other sounds underneath it. Very faint, almost imperceptible. But there, sounds that might have been voices, might have been something else. I still have that recording, saved it to my personal computer before I turned the camera in. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I listen to it, try to figure out what those sounds are. I've slowed it down, sped it up, run it through audio filters. Can't make sense of it. Maybe that's the point. Maybe some things aren't meant to make sense. All I know is this: there's something out there in the Arizona desert. Something that doesn't show up on cameras, but is as real as you or me. Something that can make time skip forward and radios go haywire. Something that watches. And if you ever find yourself driving Highway 85 south of Gila Bend at 3:17 in the morning, and you see a white light hanging perfectly still over the road ahead of you, my advice: turn around. Turn around and don't look back. I wish I could tell you that was the end of my involvement with whatever is out there on Highway 85, I really do. But about 3 months after Riley and I were reassigned, something happened that made me realize the story was far from over. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at home, it was my day off, and I was out in the garage working on my truck. Changed the oil, rotated the tires, just normal maintenance. My phone rang and I almost didn't answer because the number was blocked. But something made me pick it up. Miguel Navarro? The voice was male, professional, no accent I could identify. Yeah, who's this? My name is Dr. Marcus Aldridge. I'm a research consultant with the Department of Interior. I'd like to speak with you about the incident you reported on September 14th, in person, if possible. I wiped the oil off my hands with a rag, my mind racing. September 14th was the date of our first sighting. I already talked to someone from Regional about that. I know. I've read your statement. That's actually why I'm calling. I believe you and Mr. Cortez saw something significant, and I'd like to discuss it further. There's some information I think you should be aware of. Everything in my gut told me this was a bad idea, but curiosity won out. When and where? There's a diner in Gila Bend, Maria's place. Do you know it? I did. Small, roadside diner. Been there since the 50s. Good coffee, even better pie. I can be there tomorrow at noon. Perfect. I'll be wearing a blue jacket. And Mr. Navarro? Please don't mention this meeting to anyone, including your partner. It's important. He hung up before I could respond. I should have called Riley right then. Should have told him about the call. But Dr. Aldridge's request echoed in my head. Don't mention this to anyone. Why? What was so secret about a follow-up interview on a UFO sighting? The next day, I drove down to Gila Bend, which is about an hour from where I live. Maria's place sits right off the highway, a weathered building with a neon sign that's probably original from when the place opened. At noon on a Wednesday, it was maybe a quarter full. Truckers mostly, a couple of tourists. Dr. Marcus Aldridge was easy to spot. He was the only person wearing a blue jacket, sitting alone in a corner booth with a cup of coffee and what looked like a folder of documents. He was maybe 50, salt and pepper hair, wire-rimmed glasses. Looked more like a college professor than a government consultant. I slid into the booth across from him. He extended a hand. Mr. Navarro, thank you for coming. Just Miguel is fine. What's this about? He glanced around the diner, checking to see if anyone was paying attention to us. No one was. Still, he kept his voice low. I'm going to show you something, and I need you to remain calm. Can you do that? I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. Dr. Aldridge opened the folder and slid a photograph across the table. It was a nighttime shot, taken from what looked like another vehicle, of a white light hovering over a desert road. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. This was taken in night 3, he he said. Highway 85, approximately the same location where you had your encounter. He laid out another photo. Same light, different angle. 1998, another photo. 2003, another. 2007, another. 2011. The photos kept coming, forming a line across the table between us. Same light, same location, same inexplicable phenomenon, documented over nearly 3 decades. What is this? I asked, though part of me already knew. Evidence that what you saw is not new, it's not isolated, and it's not going away. He pulled the photos back into a neat stack. Miguel, you and Riley are the 17th Patrol Unit to report encounters with this phenomenon. 17 that we know of. There are probably others who saw it and never filed reports. I felt cold, despite the warmth of the diner. 17. Why haven't I heard about this? Why isn't this in the news? Dr. Aldridge gave me a tired smile. Because the news doesn't want to hear about it. Because the moment someone starts talking about UFOs, they're labeled a crackpot. You know that as well as I do. He paused, took a sip of his coffee. But more importantly, because certain people in certain agencies prefer that this stays quiet. Who are you really? I asked. You said Department of Interior, but I don't think that's the whole story. You're perceptive. I do work for DOI, but I also consult with a smaller group. We don't have an official name. We're not MUFON, we're not NECAP, we're not any of the civilian organizations. We're people within the government who've noticed patterns that concern us. What kind of patterns? He leaned forward. The sightings on Highway 85 occur in cycles. Every 6 to 8 weeks, there's a spike in activity. Multiple reports, sometimes on consecutive nights. Then it goes quiet for a while. We've been tracking this since at least the early 90s, possibly longer. Why that specific stretch of road? That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Dr. Aldridge said. We have theories. There's a lot of military airspace in southern Arizona, Barry Goldwater Range, Yuma Proving Ground. Maybe whatever this is, it's attracted to military activity. Or maybe it's studying it. Or maybe it's military, I suggested. Some kind of experimental aircraft. That was my first thought, too. But I've been doing this for 12 years, Miguel. I've seen classified aircraft. I've talked to people who work on classified programs. This doesn't match any technology profile I'm aware of. The way it moves or doesn't move. The way it affects electronic equipment but doesn't show up on certain recording devices. The missing time phenomenon. He paused. And then there's the witness testimonies. What about them? They're too consistent. When people lie, or when they misremember, there are variations in their stories. They change details, they embellish, they contradict themselves. But the 17 patrol units who've reported this, their descriptions are nearly identical. White light, no sound, complete stillness, camera malfunction, radio interference, missing time of 2 to 4 minutes. He looked at me intently. You and Riley lost 3 minutes. Do you remember what happened during those 3 minutes? I thought back to that night, trying to recall. We were just sitting there, watching the light. Are you sure? What if you weren't just watching? What if something else happened that you don't remember? The implication of what he was suggesting hit me like a physical blow. You think we were abducted. I think something happened during those 3 minutes that your conscious mind doesn't have access to. Whether that constitutes abduction in the traditional sense, I don't know. But I think the phenomenon isn't just observing us. I think it's interacting with us in ways we don't fully understand yet. I sat back in the booth, my head spinning. A waitress came by to refill Dr. Aldridge's coffee and take our order. I asked for coffee and pie, more out of a need to do something normal than actual hunger. After she left, I said, "Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me?" "Information. Cooperation. You're still working for BLM, still doing night patrols, just in a different area. I want you to keep your eyes open. If you see anything unusual, anything at all, I want you to document it and contact me immediately." He slid a business card across the table. Plain white card, just a name and a phone number. No agency, no title. "And I want to know if the phenomenon follows you." "Follows me? Why would it follow me?" "Because it has before." 3 of the previous witnesses reported secondary sightings in completely different locations after their initial encounter. We think the phenomenon may have some form of tracking capability. Or perhaps, he hesitated, choosing his words carefully, perhaps it develops an interest in certain individuals. That thought made my skin crawl. Has anyone been hurt? Any of these 17 units, did anything bad happen to them? Define bad, Dr. Aldridge said quietly. No one's been physically injured, if that's what you're asking. No one's disappeared. But there have been effects. Psychological effects. Nightmares, anxiety, paranoia. One witness developed an obsessive fear of the night sky. Had to transfer to a desk job because he couldn't handle being outside after dark anymore. Another started experiencing what she described as missing time episodes, even when she wasn't anywhere near the sighting location. She'd be at home, cooking dinner, and then suddenly realize 2 hours had passed and she had no memory of what she'd done. "Jesus," I muttered. "And you think this could happen to me?" "I think it's possible. That's why I wanted to meet with you, to warn you, but also to give you this." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device about the size of a pager. "This is a voice recorder, but it's also a radio frequency detector. If you're ever in a situation where you feel something is wrong, where your electronics start acting up, turn this on. It'll record everything, and it'll send a signal to a monitoring station we maintain. Not an official government station," he added quickly. "Just a place where people like me keep tabs on these events." I took the device, turned it over in my hands. It looked ordinary enough, like something you could buy at an electronics store. But the weight of what it represented, what it meant I might need it for, made my hand shake slightly. "One more thing," Dr. Aldridge said. He pulled out a final photo from his folder, but this one he kept face down on the table. "I'm going to show you something that might disturb you." In 2007, one of the witnesses managed to get close-up footage of the phenomenon. Not video, the camera wouldn't work, but they used an old Polaroid camera, instant film, the kind that develops right there in your hand. He paused. "Are you sure you want to see this?" I wasn't sure at all, but I nodded anyway. He flipped the photo over. The image was grainy and washed out, the quality you'd expect from a Polaroid taken at night. But you could see it clearly, the white light, closer than I'd ever gotten to it. And around the light, barely visible, was a structure. It wasn't a traditional craft shape, not a saucer or a triangle. It was almost organic looking, with irregular edges that seemed to blur and shift even in the still photograph. And there was something else, something that made my breath catch in my throat. Shadows, multiple shadows, humanoid in shape but wrong proportions, visible against the glow of the light. "What are those?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. "We don't know. The witness who took this photo said they didn't see those shapes with their naked eye. They only appeared in the developed photograph, which suggests that whatever they are, they exist in a wavelength or dimension that our eyes can't directly perceive, but film can capture." I pushed the photo back toward him. I'd seen enough. Why are you really telling me all this? It's not just to warn me, is it? Dr. Aldridge smiled grimly. You're right. I need something from you. If you encounter this phenomenon again, and if you feel like something is about to happen, like you're about to lose time again, I need you to fight it. Stay conscious. Try to remember. We need to know what happens during those missing minutes. You want me to use myself as bait. I want you to be prepared. There's a difference. He finished his coffee and stood up. Think about what I've said. Keep the recorder. Use it if you need to. And Miguel, be careful out there. Whatever this is, it's been around for a long time. It knows what it's doing. We're the ones stumbling in the dark. He left $40 on the table, enough to cover both our orders plus a generous tip, and walked out of the diner. I sat there for a while longer, staring at my untouched pie, the small recorder heavy in my pocket. I should have told Riley about the meeting, should have shown him the photos, shared what Dr. Aldridge had said. But I didn't. I kept it to myself, which was probably exactly what they wanted. Divide the witnesses, keep them isolated, make them doubt their own memories and sanity. But here's the thing. Dr. Aldridge was wrong about one thing. He said no one had been followed by the phenomenon after their initial sighting. That wasn't entirely accurate, because 2 weeks after our meeting, I had an experience that made me realize the white light wasn't done with me. I was home alone. My wife was visiting her sister in Tucson, wouldn't be back until the next day. It was around 10 p.m., and I was getting ready for bed when every light in the house suddenly brightened. Not flickering, not surging. Just a steady increase in intensity until the bulbs were putting out maybe twice their normal output. Then I heard it. That low-frequency hum. The same sound from the radio in our patrol truck. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, seeming to vibrate through the walls themselves. I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen was black. I pressed the power button. Nothing. The phone was completely dead even though it had been at 70% battery just minutes before. The humming got louder. I could feel it in my teeth now, in my bones. And then I saw it through my bedroom window. A white light, identical to the one from Highway 85, hovering above my backyard. My hands were shaking as I pulled the recorder Dr. Aldridge had given me from my nightstand drawer. I turned it on, pointed it at the window. The device's screen showed radio frequencies spiking off the chart, readings I didn't understand but knew couldn't be normal. The light moved closer to the window. I wanted to run, wanted to hide, but I couldn't move. It was like that first night all over again, that sense of being observed, studied, catalogued by something vast and unknowable. Then, just as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The lights returned to normal. The humming ceased. The white light vanished. My phone powered back on, showing 10:14 p.m. I looked at my watch. It also said 10:14 p.m. But the last time I'd looked at my phone, before the lights started acting weird, it had been 10:11 p.m. 3 minutes. 3 minutes were just gone again. I called Dr. Aldridge immediately. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been expecting my call. "It came to my house," I said, not bothering with greetings. "It was here." "Did you use the recorder?" "Yes." "Good. I'm sending someone to pick it up tomorrow. Don't leave it unattended. Don't let anyone else touch it. This is important, Miguel." What's happening to me? Why is it following me? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Dr. Aldridge said, "I think it marked you. That first night on Highway 85, whatever happened during those initial 3 minutes of missing time, I think it did something. tagged you somehow. And now it's checking in. Checking in for what? I wish I knew. I barely slept that night. Kept all the lights on. Kept checking the windows. Kept waiting for that humming to start again. It didn't. But the fear was there, constant and suffocating. The next morning, a woman in a dark sedan came to my house. She showed me credentials that looked official but could have been faked for all I knew. I handed over the recorder. She told me I'd done the right thing, thanked me, and left. That was it. Riley called me later that day. "Miguel, weird question. You see anything unusual last night?" My blood went cold. Why? I had this experience around 10 p.m. All my lights went crazy bright for a few minutes, and I heard this sound, like a really low hum. Freaked me out. Did you see anything outside? No, but I felt like something was watching me. I know that sounds paranoid. It didn't sound paranoid at all. It sounded like confirmation of my worst fear. The phenomenon hadn't just marked me, it had marked both of us. After that night, things escalated quickly. Riley and I started comparing notes every day, checking in with each other, documenting everything. We both experienced the same symptoms. Trouble sleeping, heightened anxiety, a constant feeling of being watched, even in broad daylight. And the lights, those damn lights in our houses, would surge at random times, always accompanied by that low-frequency hum. Dr. Aldridge kept in contact, calling me every few days to check in. He confirmed that the recordings from both my device and Riley's, he'd given one to Riley too after learning about his experience, showed identical radio frequency patterns. Whatever was visiting us was real, and it was consistent. But the most disturbing development came about 3 weeks after the phenomenon appeared at my house. I started having dreams. But calling them dreams doesn't quite capture what they were. They were too vivid, too detailed, too consistent night after night. And here's the really messed up part. Riley was having the same dreams. In the dreams, I'd find myself back on Highway 85, sitting in the patrol truck. But I wasn't in the driver's seat and Riley wasn't beside me. I was alone. The white light would appear ahead of me, and instead of feeling fear, I'd feel this overwhelming sense of calm, like everything was okay, like this was exactly where I was supposed to be. The light would get closer, and I'd get out of the truck. I'd walk toward it, unable to stop myself, and as I got within maybe 20 feet, I could see the structure that had been in that Polaroid photo, the organic, shifting edges, the shadows moving within the light. Then one of the shadows would separate from the others and move toward me. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with a elongated head and limbs that seemed slightly too long for its body. Its eyes, its eyes were enormous and completely black, like looking into deep space. But I wasn't afraid. In the dream, I felt peace, acceptance. The figure would reach out toward me. Its hand, if you could call it that, had too many fingers, and the moment it touched my forehead, I'd wake up. Every single time, I'd wake up at 3:17 a.m. Riley described his dreams to me, and they were identical. Same location, same light, same figure, same touch, same wake-up time. At first we thought maybe we were influencing each other, that talking about our experiences was causing our brains to generate similar dreams. But there were details we hadn't discussed, small things that we couldn't have known unless we were genuinely experiencing the same thing. Dr. Aldridge was fascinated when we told him. He sent us both to a sleep study clinic, not an official government facility but a private place that he had connections with. They monitored our brain activity for 3 consecutive nights. The results were, according to the lead researcher, impossible. During our REM sleep periods, particularly around 3:17 a.m., our brainwave patterns synchronized. Not similar, identical, like our brains were tuned to the same frequency. This shouldn't be possible, the researcher told us. She was a woman in her 40s, Dr. Sarah Teng, who'd been studying sleep patterns for 15 years. Two people in separate rooms, separate beds, separate monitoring equipment, showing identical EEG readings. The statistical probability of this occurring naturally is essentially 0. So, what does it mean? I asked. Dr. Teng looked at Dr. Aldridge, who nodded as if giving her permission to speak freely. It means something is connecting you. During your sleep, something is linking your consciousness together. Whether that's technological, biological, or something else entirely, I can't say. But the connection is real and measurable. Riley and I left the clinic more confused and frightened than when we'd arrived. That night, we decided to try something. We both set alarms for 3:15 a.m., determined to wake up before the dreams could start, before that 3:17 synchronization could occur. I woke to my alarm, groggy but alert. Checked my phone. 3:15 a.m. exactly. I called Riley. "You awake?" I asked when he picked up. "Yeah, you? Obviously. Let's stay on the phone. If something's trying to connect us in our sleep, maybe we can stay conscious through it. Worth a shot." We stayed on the line, making small talk, discussing sports, anything to keep our minds active and awake. At 3:16, my lights started to brighten. I heard Riley curse on the other end of the line. "Yours too?" he asked. "Yeah." At 3:17, the humming started. But this time, staying awake through it, I could hear something I'd missed before. Underneath the low frequency, there were patterns, mathematical progressions. It wasn't random noise, it was information, data being transmitted on a carrier wave. "Riley, are you hearing this? The patterns in the sound?" "Yeah, it's like Morse code but more complex." The humming intensified. Our conversation became harder to maintain over the noise. And then, at exactly 3:18, I felt it. A presence in my bedroom. I couldn't see anything, the lights were too bright now, washing everything out in white glare, but I knew something was there. "Riley? I feel it too, man. Something's here. Stay on the line. Whatever happens, stay on the..." The phone went dead. My lights went dark. And for a moment, maybe 3 seconds, maybe 3 minutes, I was somewhere else. I can't describe it adequately. It wasn't a room, exactly. It wasn't anywhere I recognized. There was light, but no source for the light. There were surfaces, but I couldn't determine if they were walls or floors or something else entirely. And I wasn't alone. The tall figure from my dreams was there, not threatening, just present, observing. And I could feel, not hear, but feel, communication happening. It wasn't language. It was direct transmission of concepts, of information, flooding into my mind faster than I could process. Images. Hundreds, maybe thousands of images, other people, other times, other places. All experiencing the same thing I was. All connected by the same phenomenon. I saw Highway 85, but also roads in other states, other countries. I saw the white light over deserts and oceans and cities. I saw the timeline stretching back decades, maybe centuries, an unbroken chain of contact. And then I understood. This wasn't abduction. This was documentation. We weren't being taken. We were being recorded. Every witness, every encounter, every missing minute was being added to some vast archive of information about humanity. But why? The answer came not in words, but in feeling. Preservation. Whatever these beings were, wherever they came from, they were collecting us. Not our bodies, but our experiences, our consciousness, our essence. Like a library, like a backup. Then, as suddenly as it started, I was back in my bedroom. The lights were normal. The phone was silent in my hand. I looked at my watch, 3:21 a.m. I immediately called Riley back. He answered before the first ring finished. "Did you?" he started. "Yeah, I saw it. I was there, wherever there is. Miguel, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can keep living with this." I understood exactly what he meant. The constant fear, the invaded privacy, the sense that your own mind wasn't entirely your own anymore. It was wearing us down. "We need to talk to Dr. Aldridge," I said. "Tomorrow. We need answers, real answers, about what's happening and how to make it stop." The meeting with Dr. Aldridge the next day was intense. We told him everything, held nothing back. The synchronized dreams, the presence in our homes, the vision, or whatever it was, that we'd both experienced at 3:17 a.m. He listened to all of it without interrupting. When we finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "I'm going to tell you something that I shouldn't. Something that could get me fired, or worse, but you deserve to know." He pulled out a document, heavily redacted, but readable. This is from 1952. Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation program. It was supposedly closed in 1969, but elements of it continued under different names, different budgets, different oversight, or lack thereof. He pointed to a section of text. "This is a report from a civilian pilot who had a close encounter over Nevada. He describes the same phenomenon you experienced. The presence, the information download, the sense of being cataloged. This has been happening for at least 70 years that we know of, probably longer." "So the government knows about this?" Riley asked. "Parts of the government know parts of it. There's no central authority, no single agency handling all of this. It's compartmentalized, fragmented, deliberately obscured. Some branches think it's foreign technology. Others think it's domestic black projects. A very small group, the group I'm part of, thinks it's something else entirely, something not from here. But what do they want?" I asked the question that had been eating at me since this all started. Dr. Aldridge sighed. "Based on everything we've gathered over the decades, our best theory is that they're preparing for something. An event, maybe, or a transition. They're collecting data on humanity because they need to understand us for whatever comes next. Maybe it's first contact. Maybe it's intervention in case we destroy ourselves. Maybe it's something we don't have the framework to even imagine." "That's not an answer," Riley said bitterly. "That's speculation." "It's all we have," Dr. Aldridge admitted. "Look, I can't make this stop. I can't protect you from further contact. What I can do is keep monitoring, keep documenting, and if anything changes, if we learn anything new, I'll tell you immediately. But Miguel, Riley, I need you both to understand something crucial. You're not in danger. In 70 years of documented cases, not a single person has been physically harmed by this phenomenon. Frightened, yes. Psychologically affected, absolutely, but not harmed." "That's supposed to make us feel better?" I asked. "It's supposed to give you perspective. Whatever this is, whatever their purpose, they're not hostile. They're just thorough." Riley and I left that meeting with more questions than answers. But something had shifted. Knowing we weren't alone, that this had been happening to people for decades, that there was at least some record and acknowledgement of it, even if unofficial, that helped. A little. The encounters continued, but less frequently. Once every 2 weeks, then once a month. The dreams persisted but became less disturbing, more routine. Riley and I adapted, developed coping strategies, learned to function despite the constant undercurrent of anxiety. About 6 months after our first sighting, Riley decided to leave the Bureau of Land Management. Took a job in Phoenix, security work, strictly daytime hours. I don't blame him. Part of me envied him for being able to walk away. But I stayed. Maybe because I'm stubborn, or maybe because on some level I needed to understand. Needed to be part of whatever this was, even if I couldn't control it. The last significant encounter I had was about a year after the initial sighting. I was back on night patrol. Different sector, but still desert. Still vast emptiness under endless stars. It was 3:17 a.m., because of course it was, when I saw the white light again. This time, I didn't feel fear. I felt something closer to recognition. Like seeing an old acquaintance you've made peace with even if you don't fully understand them. I stopped the truck, got out, and walked toward the light. Not compelled, not controlled. Just choosing to. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was brave. Maybe it was neither. But I needed to face it on my own terms. Not as a victim or a witness, but as a participant. The light descended until it was about 30 feet above the ground, maybe 20 feet away from me. Close enough that I could see the structure now with my naked eyes, not just in photographs. That organic, shifting surface that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. And I could see them. 3 figures, clearly visible against the glow. Tall, thin, with those enormous dark eyes. They looked at me, and I looked at them. And for a moment, we were just 2 forms of intelligence acknowledging each other across an incomprehensible divide. Then they were gone. The light was gone. I was alone in the desert. The only sound, the distant hum of traffic on a far-off highway. I got back in my truck and continued my patrol. Finished my shift, went home, didn't file a report. What would I say? That I'd walked toward the phenomenon voluntarily? That I'd looked at them and they'd looked at me, and somehow in that exchange I'd found closure? Dr. Aldridge called me the next day. We picked up readings last night. Strong ones, your sector. You want to tell me what happened? No, I said simply. No, I don't think I do. He was quiet for a moment, then said, Fair enough. You doing okay? Yeah, I think I actually am. And I was. The encounters stopped after that night. The dreams faded. The synchronization with Riley broke. Whatever connection had been established, it had served its purpose and been severed. Or maybe completed. That was 3 years ago. I still work for the Bureau of Land Management. Still do night patrols in the southern Arizona desert. I still see strange things sometimes. Lights that might be aircraft or satellites or something else. But I don't feel fear anymore. Just curiosity. And acceptance. Riley and I still keep in touch. He's doing well in Phoenix, got married last year. We don't talk about what happened very often, but when we do, it's with the understanding of people who've shared an experience that most would never believe and even fewer would understand. Dr. Aldridge retired last year. Before he left, he sent me a package. Inside was every document he'd collected over his 12 years of investigating the Highway 85 phenomenon. Reports, photographs, witness statements. A complete history of something that officially doesn't exist. There was also a note. For when you're ready to tell your story, someone should. Someone who was there. Someone who will be believed, or at least given the benefit of the doubt. The world needs to know we're not alone, and that whatever's out there has been watching us for a very long time. Maybe it's time we started watching back. So here I am, telling you this story. Every word of it is true. I know how that sounds. I know the skepticism you probably feel. I felt it too, before it happened to me. But I'm telling you anyway because it's important. There is something out there on Highway 85 south of Gila Bend, Arizona. A white light that doesn't show up on cameras but is as real as the road beneath it. Something that has been appearing for decades, maybe longer. observing travelers, cataloging encounters, collecting information about humanity for reasons we can only guess at. And it's not hostile, it's not friendly either. It's just there, conducting its research or its documentation or whatever it is, with the patience of something that operates on a timescale we can't comprehend. If you ever find yourself out there at 3:17 in the morning, and you see that light, you have a choice. You can run, like Riley and I wanted to that first night. You can report it and deal with the disbelief and the questions and the psychological aftermath. You can ignore it and spend the rest of your life wondering if it was real. Or you can do what I eventually did. You can stop and look and acknowledge that we share this planet, this universe, with something other than ourselves. Something that's been here all along, watching and waiting and recording. The phenomenon is real. The beings are real. The contact is real. And maybe that's not something to be afraid of. Maybe it's just the way things are. I still work the night shift. Still drive through that vast Arizona desert under stars that seem close enough to touch. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, still watching, still adding to their archive of human experience. I think they probably are. And you know what? That's okay with me now. But I'll tell you this. I never drive Highway 85 anymore. Some roads, once you've seen what they really are better left to others. My name is Samantha Vale, and I've been a K-9 officer with U.S. Customs and Border Protection for 7 years. My partner is a Belgian Malinois named Ranger, and together we patrol some of the most remote stretches of the Arizona-Mexico border. What I'm about to tell you happened on a cold February night, and it's something that changed the way I look at the night sky forever. Before I get into what happened, you need to understand what Border Patrol is really like out here. It's not what you see in the movies. Most nights it's just you, your dog, miles of empty desert, and the constant awareness that anything could happen. We drive modified Ford F-250s equipped with spotlights, thermal imaging, and enough communications equipment to stay connected to dispatch even in the most isolated areas. The trucks are reliable, built to handle the rough terrain and extreme temperatures of the Sonoran desert. That night, February 18th, I was working with Gus Trammell. Gus had been with CBP for almost 15 years, old-school border patrol, the kind of guy who knew every dirt road and dry wash within 100 miles. He was driving. I was in the passenger seat with Ranger in the back, and we were heading east on Vacol Valley Road, about 30 miles south of Interstate 8. It was around 11:45 p.m. when it started. The temperature had dropped to maybe 40 degrees. Cold for Arizona, but not unusual for February. The sky was clear, no moon, just stars scattered across the darkness like someone had thrown diamond dust across black velvet. We'd been driving for about 2 hours, checking sensor alerts and looking for signs of illegal crossings. It had been a quiet night, the kind where the biggest excitement is spotting a coyote in your headlights. Ranger had been sleeping in the back, which was normal. He's trained to alert when he detects human scent or certain substances, but when there's nothing to detect, he conserves energy. Smart dog. But at 11:47 p.m., he suddenly sat up and started whining. Not barking, not his alert behavior, just this low, anxious whine that I'd never heard from him before. "What's wrong with him?" Gus asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I don't know." I turned around to check on Ranger. He was staring out the back window, his ears flat against his head, his whole body tense. "Ranger, what is it, boy?" That's when the engine stopped. Not sputtered, not coughed, not died gradually. 1 second we were cruising at about 40 miles per hour. The next second, the engine just cut out completely. The sudden silence was shocking. When you've been listening to an engine for hours, when it's the only sound in that vast emptiness, the absence of it hits you like a physical thing. Gus immediately tried to restart it, turned the key, pumped the gas pedal. Nothing. The dashboard lights were still on, glowing bright green and amber. The radio was still working, crackling with occasional chatter from other units. But the engine was completely dead. "The hell?" Gus muttered. He tried again. The starter motor engaged. We could hear it turning over, but the engine wouldn't catch. It was like something was preventing combustion from happening. I reached for the radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. We have a vehicle malfunction on Vacol Valley Road, approximately marker 23, requesting assistance." The radio crackled. The voice that came back was broken up, like someone was talking through water. "Unit, copy, location, assistance." "Dispatch, you're breaking up. Can you repeat?" More static. Then nothing. The radio went completely silent, even though the display showed it was still powered on and set to the right channel. "Radio's dead too," I said, stating the obvious. Gus tried the engine again, same result. Starter turning, engine refusing to start. He hit the steering wheel in frustration. This truck was serviced 3 days ago. 3 days. Everything was perfect. That's when I noticed Ranger. He'd gone completely silent, not whining anymore, just staring out the back window with an intensity I'd never seen before. I followed his gaze, and that's when I saw it. About a quarter mile behind us, maybe 500 feet up in the air, there was a light. Not a single point of light like a star or a plane. This was a formation of lights arranged in a perfect triangle. 3 lights, one at each corner, with a faint glow connecting them, outlining the shape of something solid. "Gus," I said quietly, "look behind us." He turned in his seat and I heard his breath catch. We both stared at the triangular formation, hovering absolutely still in the night sky. It wasn't moving, wasn't making any sound, just hanging there like it was painted on the darkness. "That's a drone," Gus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Military drone from Barry Goldwater Range." "Since when do military drones look like that?" I asked. "And since when do they hover over CBP patrol routes?" Gus didn't answer. He tried the engine again. Nothing. The triangle stayed where it was, maintaining the same distance, the same altitude. The lights at each corner were steady, not blinking, not pulsing. They had a yellowish-white quality that reminded me of sodium vapor lamps, but brighter, more intense. "I'm getting out," Gus said, reaching for the door handle. "Wait," I started, but he was already opening the door. The interior light came on when he opened the door, and immediately Ranger started barking. Not his alert bark, his aggressive bark, the kind he uses when he senses a genuine threat. I'd only heard him bark like that a handful of times in the 3 years we'd been partners. "Ranger, quiet!" I commanded, but he didn't obey. He kept barking, kept staring at the triangular lights through the back window. Gus stepped out onto the dirt road. I watched through the windshield as he walked to the front of the truck, opened the hood. The engine block was illuminated by the headlights, which were still working despite the dead engine. Everything electrical seemed to be functioning except for the engine and the radio. I got out too, leaving Ranger in the truck. The moment I stepped outside, I felt it. A pressure in the air, like the feeling you get before a thunderstorm, that electric heaviness that makes your skin tingle. But the sky was clear. No clouds, no wind, no indication of any weather system. "Anything obvious?" I called to Gus. He was leaning over the engine, playing a flashlight over the various components. "Nothing. Everything looks normal. Cables connected, battery terminals clean, no fluid leaks. It's like someone just flipped a switch and turned the whole thing off." I looked back at the triangle. It was still there, still hovering, still watching. Because That's what it felt like. Not just that we were seeing it, but that it was seeing us, observing us, studying us. Gus, that thing hasn't moved since we stopped. He straightened up, wiped his hands on his pants, and turned to look at the lights. Yeah, I noticed. You still think it's a drone? He was quiet for a long moment, then, No, I don't think that's a drone. Ranger was still barking inside the truck, his barks echoing across the empty desert. The sound should have traveled far in the still air, but it seemed muted somehow, like the air itself was absorbing the noise. We need to report this, I said. With what? Radio's dead, and I'm betting our cell phones are too. I pulled out my phone. He was right. The screen was black, completely unresponsive. I tried holding down the power button. Nothing. The phone was only 6 months old. Battery had been at 70% when we started our shift. Now it was a useless brick of glass and metal. Same here, Gus said, checking his own phone. The feeling of being watched intensified. I've spent years working in remote areas, comfortable with isolation, trained to handle dangerous situations, but this was different. This was a kind of vulnerability I'd never experienced before. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere with a dead vehicle, dead communications, and something unidentifiable hovering in the sky behind us. What do we do? I asked. Gus looked at the triangle, then at me, then back at the triangle. We wait. See what happens. If it's military, they'll identify themselves eventually. If it's something else, he's trailed off, not finishing the thought. If it's something else, what? I don't know, Sam. I honestly don't know. We stood there beside the truck, Ranger still barking inside, the triangle still hovering behind us. Minutes passed. I kept checking my watch, making sure I could track the time accurately. 11:52 p.m. The triangle had appeared at 11:47, which meant we'd been stranded for 5 minutes. Then something changed. The triangle started moving. Not quickly, not erratically. It moved with a smooth, deliberate motion, gliding closer to us. Still maintaining the same altitude, still completely silent, but definitely closing the distance. It's coming toward us, I said, my voice tight. Gus saw it too. Get back in the truck. And do what? We can't drive, we can't call for help. Just get in the truck, Sam. We both climbed back into the cab. Ranger immediately stopped barking and pressed himself against my seat, whining again. I'd never seen him scared before. Canines are trained to be fearless, to face down threats without hesitation. But whatever he was sensing from that triangle, it terrified him. The triangle continued its approach. It was now maybe 200 yards behind us, still at about 500 feet altitude. Through the back window, I could see it more clearly now. The 3 lights at the corners were definitely attached to something solid. There was a darkness between the lights, a shape that blocked out the stars behind it. The object was massive, easily as big as a commercial airliner, maybe bigger. Gus, that thing is huge. I know. We need to stay calm, he interrupted. Whatever this is, panicking isn't going to help. He was right, but staying calm was easier said than done. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to get away from whatever that thing was, but there was nowhere to run. The nearest structure was the Vicol Valley Estates, an abandoned trailer park about 5 miles east. We'd never make it on foot, especially not in the dark. The triangle continued to close the distance. 100 yards, 50 yards. It was directly behind us now, hovering at maybe 30 yards, still maintaining that 500-foot altitude. The lights were brighter now, illuminating the entire area around our truck. I could see the desert landscape in eerie detail, the scrub brush and cacti casting long shadows across the dirt. That's when the interior of our truck started to change. The light from outside was seeping in, not through the windows but through the metal itself. It was like the truck was becoming transparent, the solid panels of the doors and roof letting that yellowish-white glow pass through them. I could see my own hands glowing, the bones visible as shadows beneath my skin. "This isn't happening," Gus said, but his voice said he knew it was. Ranger had gone completely silent. He was lying on the floor of the back seat, his eyes closed, his body completely relaxed. It looked like he was sleeping, but I knew he wasn't. He was unconscious. Whatever that light was doing to him, it had shut him down completely. "Ranger!" I tried to reach back to check on him, but my body felt heavy, sluggish. My arm moved in slow motion, like I was underwater. "Sam." Gus's voice sounded distant, even though he was right next to me. "Sam, I can't move." I couldn't either. My body had stopped responding to my commands. I was aware of everything, could see and hear and feel, but I couldn't move. Couldn't turn my head. Couldn't reach for the door handle. Couldn't do anything except sit there and watch as the light grew brighter and brighter. The last thing I remember seeing was the dashboard clock. 11:54 p.m. Then everything went white. When I came to, the first thing I noticed was the darkness. The light was gone. The interior of the truck was normal again, illuminated only by the dashboard lights and the faint glow of the stars outside. The second thing I noticed was the sound. The engine was running. Not rough, not struggling, running perfectly, like nothing had ever been wrong with it. I looked at Gus. He was gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles white, staring straight ahead through the windshield. "Gus?" He didn't respond immediately. Then, slowly, he turned to look at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide. "Did that just happen?" "I think so. Yeah, I think it did." I checked the back seat. Ranger was sitting up, looking around with a confused expression, but he seemed okay. No obvious injuries, no signs of distress. "You okay, boy?" I reached back to pet him. He licked my hand, his usual friendly self. Whatever had knocked him unconscious was gone now. I looked out the back window. The triangle was gone. The sky was empty again, just stars and darkness. "Where did it go?" I asked. "I don't know. One second we were frozen, and that light was everywhere, and then we were here, like this, engine running." I checked my phone, still dead. The radio was crackling with static again, but no voices. I looked at my watch and my blood went cold. "Gus, what time do you have?" He glanced at the dashboard clock. 12 o'clock a.m., midnight. Why? My watch says the same thing. So the last time I looked at the clock before the light got too bright, it was 11:54 p.m. He stared at me. "That's 6 minutes." "Yeah. We were sitting here for 6 minutes? I don't remember 6 minutes, do you?" He thought about it, his face growing paler. "No. I remember the light getting brighter. I remember not being able to move, and then nothing. Then we were here. Like this. 6 minutes. 6 minutes were just gone. Erased. Like they'd never happened." I grabbed the radio handset. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. Do you copy?" This time, the response was immediate and clear. "Unit 47, we copy. What's your status?" "We had a vehicle malfunction on Vicol Valley Road. Engine's working now, returning to base." "Copy that, Unit 47. Everything okay out there?" I looked at Gus. He gave me a slight shake of his head. "Don't tell them, not yet." "Everything's fine, dispatch. We're heading back now." "Copy. See you when you get here. Dispatch out." I set the handset back in its cradle. Gus put the truck in gear and we started moving, the engine purring like nothing had ever been wrong with it. Neither of us said anything for a long time. We just drove through the darkness, heading back to base, both of us trying to process what had just happened. It wasn't until we were about 10 miles from the station that Gus finally spoke. "We're going to have to report this." "I know. They're going to think we're crazy." "Yeah, probably." "Sam, what do you think that was?" I'd been asking myself the same question. "I don't know. But whatever it was, it shut down our truck, it knocked out Ranger, it paralyzed us, and it took 6 minutes from us. 6 minutes we can't account for." "You think we were taken somewhere?" The word hung in the air between us. Taken, abducted. The implications of what he was suggesting were enormous and terrifying. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't remember anything except the light. But something happened during those 6 minutes. Something we can't remember." Gus was quiet for another mile. Then he said, "I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen a lot of strange things out here. Lights in the sky, weird sounds, places where the equipment acts up for no reason. I've always explained it away. Atmospheric phenomena, military exercises, equipment malfunction. But this, Sam, I can't explain this away. Neither can I." We pulled into the station at 12:40 a.m. Our supervisor, a woman named Maria Sanchez who'd been with CBP for 20 years, was waiting for us in the parking lot. She took one look at our faces and knew something was wrong. "What happened out there?" Gus and I exchanged glances. Then, standing there in the fluorescent glow of the parking lot lights, we told her everything. The dead engine, the triangle lights, the paralysis, the missing 6 minutes. We told her all of it, knowing how it sounded, knowing she'd probably think we were having some kind of shared delusion. But Maria didn't laugh, didn't look skeptical. She just listened, her face neutral until we finished. Then she said, "Come with me, both of you." She led us into her office, closed the door, and sat down behind her desk. "You're not the first," she said simply. "Not the first what?" I asked. "Not the first CBP officers to report something like this. In the last 8 years, we've had 12 separate incidents. Different personnel, different locations, but the same basic pattern. Vehicle malfunction, unidentified lights, paralysis, missing time." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. 12 incidents? Why haven't we heard about this? Because the reports get filed, sent up the chain, and then nothing. They disappear into some bureaucratic black hole. No follow-up, no investigation, no official acknowledgement that anything unusual happened. "But you know about them," Gus said. "I keep my own records, unofficial records. Every time someone comes in with a story like yours, I document it. I've been trying to find a pattern, trying to understand what's happening out here." She opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a thick folder. "This is everything I've collected. Statements, locations, times, descriptions. And you want to know the strangest thing?" "What?" I asked. "They all happen in the same general area. A triangle of territory bounded by Interstate 8 to the north, Route 85 to the west, and the Tohono O'odham Reservation to the east. About 200 square miles of desert, and they all happen between 11:30 p.m. and 1 o'clock a.m. Gus leaned forward. "You're saying there's a specific area and a specific time window when these things occur?" "Based on the reports I've collected, yes. I don't know why, I don't know what's causing it, but the pattern is clear." I thought about this, trying to make sense of it. "Have you reported this to anyone? Higher up the chain?" Maria smiled grimly. "I've tried, several times. Each time I get the same response. Thank you for the information. We'll look into it." And then silence. No one wants to touch this. It's too weird, too controversial. Better to just pretend it's not happening." "But it is happening," I said. "It happened to us tonight. I know, and I believe you. Both of you. Which is why I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't." She pulled out 2 business cards from the folder and handed one to each of us. "This is a private researcher. He's not military, not government, just an independent investigator who's been studying these phenomena for years. If you want real answers, if you want to talk to someone who will actually listen and take you seriously, call him." I looked at the card. Dr. Raymond Fisher, Ph.D., Anomalous Phenomena Research, a phone number and an email address. "Is he legitimate?" Gus asked. "As legitimate as anyone can be who studies things that officially don't exist. He's interviewed 8 of the 12 previous witnesses, documented their experiences, looked for commonalities, tried to piece together what's actually happening. He's careful, methodical, and most importantly, he's not trying to prove a predetermined conclusion. He just wants to understand." I pocketed the card. "Well, think about it. Don't think too long. Memory fades. Details get fuzzy. If you're going to document this properly, you need to do it soon." Maria stood up, signaling the meeting was over. "Take the rest of the night off, both of you. Go home, get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." Gus and I left her office in silence. We walked out to the parking lot, stood by our vehicles in the cool night air. "You going to call him?" Gus asked. "This Dr. Fisher guy? Are you?" He thought about it. Yeah, I think I am. I need to know what happened during those 6 minutes, Sam. I need to understand." "Me too." We said goodnight and drove our separate ways. I took Ranger home with me, a small apartment in Casa Grande. My husband Mark was asleep when I got in, so I just crawled into bed beside him, Ranger curling up on his dog bed in the corner. But I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the night over and over. The dead engine, the triangle lights, the paralysis, the 6 missing minutes. What happened during those 6 minutes? That question haunted me through the rest of the night and into the following day. I called Dr. Raymond Fisher the next afternoon. I'd gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep, my mind too busy processing what had happened to properly rest. Mark had left for work. He's a construction foreman, before I even woke up, so I hadn't told him about the incident yet. I wasn't sure how to explain it. "Hey, honey, I saw a UFO last night and lost 6 minutes of my life. How was your day?" The phone rang 3 times before a man answered. "Dr. Fisher." "Hi, my name is Samantha Vale. I'm a CBP officer and Maria Sanchez gave me your number." "Ah, you had an encounter." It wasn't a question. His voice was calm, professional, with a slight East Coast accent I couldn't quite place. "Last night, how did you—" "Maria only gives out my number to people who've experienced something they can't explain. What did you see, Officer Vale?" I spent the next 20 minutes describing the entire event in as much detail as I could remember. Dr. Fisher didn't interrupt, didn't ask questions, just let me talk. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Dr. Fisher?" "I'm here, just processing." "Officer Vale, would you be willing to meet with me in person? I'd like to conduct a more thorough interview, and I'd like to do some assessments." "What kind of assessments?" "Nothing invasive. Psychological evaluation to establish a baseline, some questions about your memories of the event, maybe some regression techniques, if you're comfortable with that." "Regression? You mean like hypnosis?" "Similar. It's a way of accessing memories that your conscious mind might be suppressing. The missing time you experienced, those 6 minutes, your brain recorded what happened during that period. The memories are there, you just can't access them normally. Regression therapy can sometimes help retrieve those memories. The idea made me deeply uncomfortable. I don't know if I want to remember. That's entirely your choice. No pressure. But in my experience, not knowing is often worse than knowing. The uncertainty, the gaps in your memory, they eat at you. It's better to confront the truth, whatever that truth might be. He had a point. The not knowing was already driving me crazy. My partner, Gus Trammell, he was there too. He experienced the same thing. Would he be willing to participate as well? I think so. He said he wanted answers. Good. 2 witnesses are better than 1. It's harder to dismiss corroborating testimony. When can you both meet me? We arranged to meet that evening at a motel conference room in Gila Bend. Dr. Fisher said he was already in Arizona, had been for the past 2 weeks investigating other incidents in the area. The fact that there were other incidents, that this was part of a larger pattern, somehow made it both better and worse. Better because we weren't alone, weren't crazy. Worse because it meant this was happening regularly and no one was doing anything about it. I called Gus after I hung up with Dr. Fisher. He agreed to the meeting, said he'd been thinking about nothing else since last night. We arranged to drive down together. That evening, we met at the Desert Moon Motel in Gila Bend. It was a rundown place off the highway, the kind of establishment that survived on truckers and the occasional lost tourist. Dr. Fisher had rented their small conference room, a dingy space with stained carpet and flickering fluorescent lights. Dr. Raymond Fisher was not what I expected. I'd pictured some wild-eyed conspiracy theorist with unkempt hair and paranoid mannerisms. Instead, he was a neat, professional-looking man in his late 50s, wearing slacks and a button-down shirt. He had gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and the demeanor of a college professor, which, it turned out, he had been before dedicating himself full-time to anomalous phenomena research. Officer Vale, Officer Trammell, thank you for coming. He shook our hands, then gestured to the chairs arranged around a small table. Please, sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? We both declined. We just wanted to get this over with. Dr. Fisher set up a digital recorder on the table between us. I'm going to record our conversation, if that's okay. It helps me maintain accurate records. We both nodded our consent. Good. Let's start from the beginning. Officer Vale, you told me on the phone about the basic sequence of events. Now, I'd like you to go through it again, but this time I want you to focus on the details. Small things you might not have thought were important. The exact time things happened, what you were feeling, what your dog was doing, everything. I went through the story again, with Gus occasionally adding his own observations. Dr. Fisher listened intently, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound notebook. When we got to the part about the paralysis and the missing time, he leaned forward. Tell me about the paralysis. What exactly did it feel like? Like my body just stopped responding, I said. I could see, I could hear, I could think, but I couldn't move. Not even my eyes. Same for me, Gus added. It wasn't like being tied down or restrained. It was like the connection between my brain and my body was just severed. Dr. Fisher nodded, writing. And when you regained consciousness, or awareness, or whatever you want to call it, how did you feel physically? I thought about it. Normal, maybe a little groggy, but nothing painful. No headache, no nausea, no soreness. Just normal. Any unusual marks on your body? Scratches, bruises, puncture marks? The question made my skin crawl. No, nothing like that. Why? Just being thorough. Some witnesses report physical marks after encounters. Not all, but some. He flipped a page in his notebook. Let's talk about the missing 6 minutes. The last thing you remember is looking at the clock at 11:54 p.m., seeing it was too bright, and then nothing until you were aware again at midnight. Is that correct? Yes, I confirmed. And you, Officer Trammell, same timeline? Yeah, 6 minutes just gone. Dr. Fisher was quiet for a moment, studying his notes. Then he said something that surprised me. You're lucky it was only 6 minutes. What do you mean? Gus asked. The average missing time period in cases like this is between 20 minutes and 2 hours. 6 minutes is relatively brief, which suggests that whatever happened, it was either a very quick process or you were somehow able to resist it. Resist what exactly? I asked. What do you think happened during those 6 minutes? Dr. Fisher set down his pen and looked at us both. I think you were taken somewhere, not physically transported. I don't think your bodies left that truck, but I think your consciousness, your awareness, was moved to a different location, a different space, and during that time you were subjected to some kind of examination or data collection. The words hung in the air between us. Examination, data collection. It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie, but the way he said it, calm and matter-of-fact, made it terrifyingly real. Based on what? Gus challenged. How do you know this? Based on 8 previous interviews with CBP officers who experienced similar events. Based on patterns that emerge when you collect enough data. Based on the testimony of witnesses who've undergone regression therapy and recovered memories of what happened during their missing time. He opened a folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. These are transcripts from regression sessions. I'd like you to read them. He handed the papers to me. I started reading, Gus leaning over to read along. The transcripts were disturbing. They described experiences during the missing time periods. Being in a room with unusual lighting, feeling the presence of others, beings that were observing them, undergoing what felt like medical examinations, though nothing painful, and consistently, across multiple witnesses, the same sense that information was being extracted from them. Memories, experiences, knowledge. Like someone was downloading their consciousness. This is what you think happened to us, I said, setting the papers down. I think it's possible, yes. But the only way to know for sure is through regression, if you're willing. I looked at Gus, he looked back at me. We were both scared, I could see it in his eyes, the same fear I felt. But we both nodded. Okay, I said, let's do it. Dr. Fisher spent the next 20 minutes explaining the process. It wasn't traditional hypnosis, he assured us. We'd remain conscious and aware the entire time. He would just guide us through a relaxation technique that would allow us to access memories that were normally blocked. We could stop at any time if we felt uncomfortable. He decided to work with me first. Gus would wait outside, then we'd switch. Dr. Fisher said it was important to keep the sessions separate to avoid cross-contamination of memories. After Gus left the room, Dr. Fisher dimmed the lights and had me lie down on a small couch against the wall. Just get comfortable. Take a few deep breaths. I'm going to guide you through a relaxation exercise, and then we'll see if we can access those missing 6 minutes. His voice was soothing, professional. He walked me through progressive muscle relaxation, having me tense and release different muscle groups, counting backwards from 20. I felt my body relax, my mind becoming calm and focused. Good. Now, I want you to think about last night. You're in the truck with Officer Trammell. The engine has died. You're looking at the triangular lights in the sky. Can you see them? Yes, I heard myself say. My voice sounded distant, dreamy. The lights are getting closer. You're feeling the paralysis setting in. You look at the clock and it says 11:54 p.m. Can you see the clock? Yes, 11:54. Good. Now the light is getting very bright, too bright. But instead of closing your eyes or looking away, I want you to keep looking. Keep watching. Tell me what you see." My breathing quickened. I didn't want to look, didn't want to see. But Dr. Fisher's voice was calm, reassuring. "It's okay, Samantha. You're safe. You're here in this room with me. Nothing can hurt you. Just tell me what you see." "The light it's everywhere. Inside the truck, inside me. It's like I'm made of light. I can see through my own body." "What else?" "The truck is gone. I'm not in the truck anymore. I'm somewhere else." "Where are you?" "I don't know. It's a room. But it's not a room. The walls aren't solid. They're more like screens, moving, changing. And there's something in the room with me." "What is it?" My heart was racing now. I can't see it clearly. It's tall, very tall, and thin. It doesn't look human. The proportions are wrong. "What is it doing?" "It's looking at me. Not with eyes. I don't think it has eyes like ours. But it's aware of me. It's studying me. And I can feel it. It's inside my head, reading my thoughts, my memories. It's going through everything, looking at my whole life like it's flipping through pages in a book." "How does that make you feel?" "Violated. Like someone's going through my most private possessions without permission. But also curious. It's curious about me. Not hostile, not threatening. Just curious. What happens next? It's showing me something. Images. Not with my eyes, in my mind. I see Earth, but from above, from space. And there are others like it, watching. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They've been watching for a long time, a very long time. Why are they watching? They want to understand. They need to understand. Something is coming. Something is changing. And they need to know if we're ready. Ready for what? But before I could answer, I felt something break, like a barrier in my mind suddenly snapping. The memory ended abruptly, and I was suddenly aware of tears streaming down my face. I was lying on the couch in the conference room, Dr. Fisher sitting beside me with a concerned expression. "Samantha, are you okay?" I sat up, wiping my face. "What just happened?" "You accessed the memory. You remember?" I did. All of it. The room that wasn't a room. The tall being studying me. The sense of having my consciousness read like a document. The images of Earth from space. The suggestion that something was coming. "Oh my God," I whispered. "That really happened. That really happened to me." "Yes," Dr. Fisher said gently. "I believe it did." "Ready for what?" I asked. "The being. It said they need to know if we're ready." "Ready for what?" "I don't know." That's the question all of them are asking. Every witness who's recovered memories of their experience describes the same basic message. Something is coming. Something is changing. And these beings, whatever they are trying to determine if humanity is prepared for it. I felt sick. Not from the memory itself, but from the implications. How many people know about this? Not many. The government knows something is happening. They have to. But they're either unable or unwilling to do anything about it. So it falls to people like me, independent researchers, to document what's occurring and try to piece together the larger picture. And what is the larger picture? Dr. Fisher sighed. I wish I knew. I've been studying this for 12 years, interviewed over 50 witnesses across multiple states. The pattern is consistent, but the purpose remains unclear. Are they preparing us for contact, for some kind of intervention, for an event we can't predict? I don't have those answers yet. The door opened and Gus came back in. He took one look at my face and knew something significant had happened. Sam, you okay? She accessed the memory, Dr. Fisher explained. It was intense, but successful. Are you ready to try? Gus looked nervous but determined. Yeah, let's do this. I stepped outside while Dr. Fisher worked with Gus. I paced in the parking lot, Ranger at my side. I'd brought him along, trying to process everything. The memory was so vivid now, so real. How had I forgotten it? How had my brain blocked out something that significant? Dr. Fisher had explained that it was a protective mechanism. The human mind wasn't equipped to process that kind of experience, so it buried it, created false memories of nothing happening, of simple blank time. But the real memories were there, locked away in some inaccessible part of the brain, until regression brought them back. 45 minutes later, Gus emerged from the motel. His face was pale, his hands shaking. He walked straight to his truck and leaned against it, breathing hard. I went to him. "Gus?" "I remember," he said quietly. "I remember all of it. The room, the being, the images. Yeah, all of it." He looked at me, his eyes wide. "Sam, what the hell is happening to us?" "I don't know." Dr. Fisher joined us in the parking lot. "You both did very well. I know this is difficult to process." "Difficult?" Gus laughed, but there was no humor in it. I just remembered being examined by some kind of alien intelligence and being told that something world-changing is coming. Difficult doesn't even begin to cover it. I understand, and I know you probably have a million questions. But right now, I think you both need to go home. Get some rest. Let this settle. We can talk more in a few days when you've had time to process. "What happens now?" I asked. "Do we report this? Tell our superiors?" Dr. Fisher shook his head. "That's up to you, but I'd advise against it. Official channels have shown no interest in pursuing these cases. You'll just end up with a file that goes nowhere and potential questions about your fitness for duty. Better to keep this between us for now." "So we just go back to work? Pretend this didn't happen?" "You go back to work, and you stay alert. If you have another encounter, document everything. Call me immediately, and try to live your life as normally as possible. Don't let this consume you, even though I know that's easier said than done." He was right about that. How do you go back to normal after learning that you've been examined by non-human intelligence? That something significant is coming and you have no idea what? Gus and I drove back to Casa Grande in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. When we got to my apartment complex, he said, "We don't talk about this. To anyone. Agreed?" "Agreed. But if anything else happens, we tell each other immediately." He nodded and drove off. I went inside, where Mark was watching TV on the couch. He looked up when I came in. "Hey babe, how was work?" For a moment, I considered telling him everything, but I couldn't. How could I possibly explain this? He'd think I was losing my mind. "Fine," I said. "Just the usual." I was lying to my husband, adding that to the growing list of ways this experience was changing my life. That night, I had the first of what would become recurring dreams. I was back in that room, the one that wasn't quite a room, and the tall being was there. It didn't speak, didn't communicate in any traditional way, but I understood it was waiting for me to understand something important, waiting for me to be ready. Ready for what? I still didn't know, but I had a feeling I was going to find out. The dreams continued for weeks, always the same basic scenario. The room that wasn't a room, the tall being, the sense of waiting, of preparation. Sometimes there were variations. Sometimes I saw other humans in similar rooms, other people being examined, being read, being prepared. Sometimes I saw Earth from above, surrounded by lights, by presences, by watchers. I started losing sleep. Not because the dreams were nightmares, they weren't scary exactly, but because they were so intense, so vivid, that waking up felt like being yanked out of one reality and forced back into another. Mark noticed, asked if I was okay, if something was bothering me. I made excuses. Stress at work. The usual patrol stuff. He believed me because he wanted to, because the alternative that his wife was having recurring dreams about alien encounters was too bizarre to consider. Gus was having the same experiences. We talked every few days, checking in, comparing notes. His dreams matched mine almost exactly. Same room, same being, same sense of waiting and preparation. Dr. Fisher said this was common among witnesses who'd recovered their memories. The contact didn't end with the physical encounter. It continued through dreams, through what he called consciousness connection. They're still accessing you, Dr. Fisher explained during one of our phone conversations. The initial encounter established a link. Now they're maintaining that link, continuing to observe, continuing to prepare you. Prepare us for what? I asked, frustrated by the constant vagueness. I wish I could tell you, but based on my research, based on all the witnesses I've interviewed, my theory is this. We're approaching some kind of threshold, a point of transition, whether that's first contact, disclosure, intervention, or something else entirely, I can't say. But these beings seem to believe it's important that certain humans are aware and prepared when it happens. Why us? Why Border Patrol officers in Arizona? Location, probably. This region has been a hotspot for unusual activity for decades. The Tohono O'odham Reservation, Berry Goldwater Range, all the military installations. Maybe they're attracted to the military presence. Or maybe there's something about this area, geographically or geologically, that makes it easier for them to operate here. It was all speculation. Theories built on incomplete data and unexplainable phenomena. But it was all we had. About 6 weeks after the initial encounter, things escalated again. Gusson and I were back on patrol, same area, same night shift. We'd both requested reassignment to different sectors, but staffing shortages meant we were still covering the same routes, including Vekol Valley Road. It was March 31st, around 10:45 p.m. We were driving east on a dirt access road about 15 miles south of our first encounter. Ranger was in the back, alert, but calm. Everything seemed normal. Then the radio started acting up. That same pattern we'd heard before. Low-frequency hum, crackling static, and then that weird, rhythmic pattern underneath it all. Gus and I looked at each other immediately. "Not again," he said. But this time was different. The engine didn't die. The truck kept running, all systems functioning normally. The radio was the only thing acting strange. "Should we stop?" I asked. "Hell no. Keep driving. Get us out of this area." Gus accelerated, pushing the truck to 50 miles per hour on the rough dirt road. But the radio interference continued. And then, in the side mirror, I saw it. The triangle. 3 lights forming a perfect triangle, hovering about a half-mile behind us. "Gus, it's back. I see it." He pushed the truck faster. 60 miles per hour now, dangerously fast for this terrain. But the triangle kept pace effortlessly, maintaining the same distance, the same altitude. "It's following us," I said, stating the obvious. Ranger started barking in the back, that same aggressive, frightened bark from before. But this time I couldn't blame him. I was terrified too. The triangle didn't get closer, didn't move ahead to cut us off. It just followed, like it was hurting us somewhere, or making a point. We were being watched. We were being tracked. And there was nothing we could do about it. "Call it in," Gus said. "I don't care what Maria said. Call it in." I grabbed the radio handset, but before I could speak, the interference stopped. Just cut off completely. The triangle was still behind us, but the radio was working normally again. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. We have a visual on unidentified lights, Vecco Valley area, East Access Road near marker 31. Requesting guidance. There was a long pause, then, Unit 47, can you describe these lights? I described the triangle, the 3 points of light, the way it was following us. Another pause. Then a different voice came on the radio. Male, authoritative, not one of the regular dispatchers. Unit 47, this is Supervisor Caldwell. Maintain your current heading. Do not stop. Do not attempt to engage. We're sending backup to your location. Copy that, I said, surprised. This was the first time anyone in an official capacity had taken a UFO report seriously. The triangle followed us for another 5 miles, then, without any warning or apparent reason, it simply shot straight up into the sky. 1 second it was behind us, the next it was gone, accelerating at a speed that should have been physically impossible. No sound, no sonic boom, just instant vertical ascent until it disappeared among the stars. Gus slowed the truck to a stop. We both sat there, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. It let us go, Gus said. Or it got what it wanted. The radio crackled. Unit 47, status report. The lights are gone, I reported. Departed straight up at high speed. We're okay. Copy. Proceed to Checkpoint Delta. Backup will meet you there. Checkpoint Delta was a staging area about 10 miles north. When we got there, we found 3 vehicles waiting. One was Maria Sanchez in her supervisor's truck. The other 2 were unmarked sedans with government plates. Maria approached us first. You 2 okay? Yeah, shaken up, but okay. These gentlemen want to speak with you. She gestured to the sedans where 4 men in dark suits were getting out. They looked like FBI agents from a movie. Dark suits, sunglasses even, though it was nearly midnight, serious expressions. Officers Vale and Trammell, one of them said, approaching with his hand extended. I'm Agent Morrison with Homeland Security. We need to ask you some questions about what you just witnessed. Homeland Security. Not FBI, not military. Homeland Security was interested in UFOs? They separated Gus and me, putting us in different sedans, and spent the next hour asking extremely detailed questions. What exactly did we see? What time did it appear? What was the exact location? How fast was it moving? What was the shape? How big? Did we feel any physical effects? Did our equipment malfunction? I answered everything honestly. What was the point in lying now? When they were done, Agent Morrison gave me his card. If you have any other encounters, any other sightings, you call this number immediately. Not dispatch, not your supervisor. This number, understood? Understood. And Officer Vale, what you witnessed tonight, what you've witnessed in the past, is part of an ongoing investigation, an investigation that involves national security. We need you to maintain discretion about these events. Don't discuss them publicly, don't post about them online, and don't speak to any media if they should contact you. Is that an order? It's a strong recommendation. For your own safety and for the integrity of the investigation. They released us after that, disappearing into the night in their unmarked sedans. Maria drove us back to the station where we filed official reports of the incident. Reports that would be sent up the chain and probably disappear into the same bureaucratic void as all the others. But something had changed. The government was taking this seriously now. They'd responded immediately, sent agents to interview us, established a direct line of communication. Whatever was happening in the Arizona desert, it was significant enough to warrant attention from Homeland Security. I called Dr. Fisher the next morning and told him about the encounter and the government response. "Interesting," he said. "They're not bothering to hide their interest anymore. That suggests things are accelerating." Accelerating toward what? The threshold I mentioned. Whatever's coming, we're getting closer to it. Over the next 2 months, Gus and I had 3 more sightings. Never as close or as intense as the first encounter, but always the same basic phenomenon. Triangle lights, usually at a distance, sometimes following our patrol routes, sometimes just visible on the horizon. Each time we called Agent Morrison's number. Each time government agents showed up to take statements. And the dreams continued, growing more vivid, more detailed. The sense of preparation intensifying. I started seeing timelines in my dreams, like I was being shown possible futures. Some were beautiful, humanity reaching toward the stars, joining some greater community of intelligent species. Others were darker, catastrophic, showing what would happen if we weren't ready for what was coming. The strain was affecting my marriage. Mark knew something was wrong, knew I was keeping something from him. We argued more, communicated less. I wanted to tell him, wanted to share the burden of what I was experiencing, but how could I? How do you tell someone you love that you're being contacted by non-human intelligence? That you're being prepared for something you don't understand? In May, Dr. Fisher called with news. "I'm organizing a conference, a gathering of witnesses from across the Southwest, people who've had similar experiences to yours. I think it would be valuable for you to meet others, to hear their stories, to understand that you're part of something larger." The conference was held at a small retreat center outside of Sedona. About 40 people attended. Border Patrol officers, ranchers, truck drivers, hikers, a cross-section of people whose only common thread was that they'd all had close encounters with unexplained phenomena in Arizona, New Mexico, or Nevada. Hearing their stories was both comforting and disturbing. Comforting because I wasn't alone, wasn't crazy, wasn't making this up. Disturbing because the scope of what was happening was far larger than I'd realized. This wasn't isolated incidents. This was a sustained pattern of contacts spanning decades and involving hundreds, maybe thousands of people. During one of the group sessions, a woman named Patricia stood up to speak. She was in her 60s, a former highway patrol officer from Nevada. "I had my first encounter in 1987, she said. "Same thing many of you describe. Lost time, missing memories, sense of being examined. For years I tried to forget it, tried to move on with my life. But the dreams never stopped. The sense of being watched never went away. And about 5 years ago, something changed. The dreams became more urgent. The message became clearer. They're preparing us because we're the translators. We're the ones who'll help humanity understand when the time comes." "Translators for what?" someone asked. "For first contact. For disclosure. For whatever you want to call it. We've been selected, marked, prepared to serve as bridges between humanity and whatever intelligence is reaching out to us. I don't know when it'll happen. Could be next year, could be 10 years from now. But it's coming, and we're supposed to help people understand and accept it." The room was silent. Then another person spoke up, sharing a similar realization. Then another, a pattern emerged. Many of the witnesses, especially those who'd had multiple encounters or who'd recovered their memories through regression, had come to the same basic conclusion. They were being prepared for a specific role, to help facilitate understanding between humanity and something other. When I got home from the conference, I finally told Mark everything. I couldn't keep carrying this alone anymore. I told him about the initial encounter, the missing time, the recovered memories, the continued sightings, the dreams. All of it. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Do you believe this is real?" he finally asked. "Or do you think maybe you're experiencing some kind of trauma response?" "It's real, Mark. I know how it sounds, but it's real. Gus experienced the same things. 40 other people at that conference described nearly identical experiences. This is happening." He took my hand. "Okay, I believe you. I don't understand it. And honestly, it scares the hell out of me. But I believe you." That acceptance, that simple statement of belief and support, meant more to me than I can express. I wasn't alone anymore. I had someone to share this with. The sightings continued through the summer. The government's interest intensified. Agent Morrison started calling me directly, asking if I'd be willing to undergo additional testing. Medical evaluations, psychological assessments, detailed debriefings. I agreed. At this point, what did I have to lose? The tests revealed something strange. My brainwave patterns had changed since the initial encounter. Dr. Fisher had been tracking this in other witnesses, too. There was a measurable neurological difference in people who'd had close encounters. Like the contact had rewired something in our brains, created new neural pathways, or enhanced existing ones. "You're more receptive now," Dr. Fisher explained. "Whatever they did during that initial contact, it opened up parts of your brain that most humans don't normally access. You're more sensitive to certain frequencies, certain forms of communication. That's why the dreams are so vivid. That's why you can sense when they're nearby." "Is it permanent?" "As far as I can tell, yes. I've tracked witnesses for over a decade. The changes persist." I wasn't sure how I felt about that. Having my brain permanently altered without my consent was disturbing, but it also meant I was connected to something larger, something significant. I had access to information and experiences that most people would never have. In October, 8 months after the initial encounter, I had what I can only describe as a breakthrough. I was patrolling alone, Gus was off duty, and Ranger was with me. It was around midnight, and I was driving through the same area where everything started. The radio began its familiar pattern: low-frequency hum, rhythmic pulses. But this time, instead of feeling fear, I felt expectation, like I'd been waiting for this. I stopped the truck and got out. Ranger stayed in the vehicle, calm this time, not barking or showing any signs of distress. The triangle appeared, descending from the sky until it hovered about 100 feet above the road and maybe 50 feet away, close enough that I could see details I'd never noticed before. The surface of the craft, if that's what it was, seemed to shift and change, like it wasn't entirely solid, like it existed partially in our dimension and partially in another. And then I heard it, not with my ears but in my mind, a voice or something like a voice, not words, but concepts, information, understanding being transferred directly into my consciousness. They showed me why the encounters, why the preparation, why me and Gus and all the others. We were being tested, evaluated, prepared because humanity was approaching a critical point, a decision point. Continue on our current path of division, conflict, environmental destruction, or evolve into something greater. Transcend our limitations and join the larger community of conscious beings in the universe. They, whoever or whatever they were, couldn't force this change. It had to come from within humanity itself, but they could help. They could prepare certain individuals to serve as catalysts, as guides, as translators when the time came for humanity to make that choice. The choice wasn't being forced on us. We were free to reject it, to continue as we were. But they wanted us to have the information we needed to make an informed decision. And that's what the encounters were about: information transfer, consciousness expansion. preparation for a future we could barely imagine. The voice, the presence, whatever it was, communicated one final concept: soon. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon, within our lifetimes. The moment of transition was approaching, and those of us who'd been contacted would play a role in helping humanity navigate it. Then the triangle ascended, smoothly and silently, until it disappeared among the stars. I stood there in the desert darkness, feeling more at peace than I had in months. I finally understood. This wasn't about fear or abduction or invasion. This was about evolution, about humanity's potential to become something greater than we currently were. And I'd been given the privilege, the responsibility, of being part of that process. I got back in the truck and called Dr. Fisher, told him about the experience, the communication, the message. "You received direct communication," he said, and I could hear the excitement in his voice. "That's rare, Sam. Most witnesses only get fragments, impressions. But you got a clear message. This is significant. What do I do with it? You wait, you prepare, and when the time comes, you do what you've been prepared to do. Help people understand, help them not be afraid, help them see this as an opportunity rather than a threat." That was a year ago. Since then, I've had 3 more direct communications, each one providing more detail, more context, more understanding. Gus has had similar experiences. So have other members of Dr. Fisher's research group. The government knows. Agent Morrison admitted as much during our last meeting. "We're aware of an intelligence operating in this region," he said. "We don't understand it completely, and we can't control it. But we're monitoring it, documenting it, and preparing for whatever comes next." "Do you know when?" I asked. "No, but we think it's close. There's been an increase in activity worldwide, not just here, everywhere. Whatever threshold we're approaching, we're almost there. I still work for CBP, still patrol the same routes with Ranger, who seems completely unbothered by all of this now, like he's accepted that this is just part of our reality. Mark and I are doing better, our relationship strengthened by the honesty and trust that came from me sharing this experience with him. The dreams continue, but they're not frightening anymore. They're instructive. I'm learning things I couldn't learn any other way. About consciousness, about reality, about the nature of existence itself. I'm being educated by an intelligence far beyond human understanding, prepared for a role I'm only beginning to grasp. I don't know when the moment of transition will come. Could be next year, could be 5 years from now, but I know it's coming, and when it does, I'll be ready. We all will be. Everyone who's been contacted, who's been prepared, who's been given this gift of understanding. Some people will call this story crazy, will say I am delusional, that I need psychiatric help, that I've been traumatized by stress or environmental factors. I understand that reaction. I would have had the same reaction a year ago, but I know what I've experienced. I know what I've seen. I know what I've been told. And I know that something profound is approaching. Something that will change humanity's understanding of itself and its place in the universe. The triangle lights are still out there, still watching, still preparing. And I'm okay with that now, because I understand that they're not our enemies. They're not invaders or abductors or threats. They're teachers, guides, facilitators of our next step in evolution. And that's not something to fear, that's something to embrace. I still patrol Vicol Valley Road, still drive through that desert darkness under stars that seem closer now, more meaningful. Sometimes I see lights in the sky and I wonder if it's them, if they're watching, if they're pleased with how far we've come in our understanding. I think they probably are. And I think when the time comes, when humanity is finally ready to take that next step, we'll look back on these encounters, these preparations, these moments of contact, and we'll understand that they were gifts, the gift of knowledge, the gift of preparation, the gift of a chance to become something greater than we ever imagined possible. That's what happened to me on Vekol Valley Road. That's what's still happening to me and to hundreds of others across the Southwest and beyond. We've been contacted, we've been changed, we've been prepared, and we're waiting, not with fear, with hope. My name is Austin Forsyth, and I've been working border security for the Department of Homeland Security for 9 years. Most people think this job is all about catching people trying to cross illegally, and yeah, that's part of it. But what they don't tell you is how weird it gets out there in the darkness, how the desert at night can show you things that don't belong in any official report, things that make you question what you thought you knew about reality. This happened last April, about 30 miles west of Nogales, Arizona. I was partnered with Hector Rojas, a solid guy who'd been doing this work even longer than me. Hector was former Army, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, so he wasn't the type to get rattled easily. That's important to remember for what comes next. We were in a Ford Explorer equipped with forward-looking infrared, ground sensors monitoring equipment, and enough communication gear to stay connected even in the most remote areas. The border fence in that sector is just vehicle barriers, metal posts set in concrete that stop cars, but not people. Our job was to patrol the gaps, watch for movement, respond to sensor alerts. It was April 23rd, temperature had dropped to maybe 55 degrees, which is comfortable for desert work. Clear sky, no moon that night, just stars everywhere you looked. We'd been out since 9 p.m., checking sensor alerts that mostly turned out to be animals. Javelinas, coyotes, the occasional deer. By 1:30 a.m., it had been a quiet shift. "You ever see anything really strange out here?" I asked Hector as we drove along a dirt access road parallel to the fence line. We were about a mile north of the actual border, scanning with our thermal camera. Hector glanced at me. "Strange how?" "I don't know, just strange. Things you can't explain." He was quiet for a moment. "Why? You see something?" "No, nothing like that, just wondering." 9 years I've been doing this, and sometimes I feel like there's more going on out here than just people trying to cross. "Like what?" Before I could answer, our headlights caught something ahead. About 200 yards out, right at the fence line, there was a light. Not a flashlight, not vehicle headlights. This was different. It was bright, almost painfully bright. But it had this weird quality where it seemed to absorb surrounding darkness rather than push it away. "You see that?" I asked. "Yeah." Hector leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. "What is it?" "Don't know. Let's check it out." I drove closer, slowing to about 20 miles per hour. The light wasn't moving, just sitting there maybe 3 feet off the ground, right up against the vehicle barrier. As we got closer, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The light wasn't casting shadows. Our headlights were illuminating everything around it: the fence posts, the scrub brush, the rocky ground. All of it had normal shadows, but the bright light itself, which should have been the brightest thing out there, wasn't creating any shadows at all. It was like it existed in a different layer of reality, visible but not interacting with the physical world the way light should. "That's not right," Hector said quietly. "No, it's not." I stopped the truck about 50 yards away. The light was approximately the size of a basketball, hovering steady with no visible means of support. It pulsed very slightly, brightening and dimming in a slow rhythm, like something breathing. Hector reached for the binoculars we kept in the center console. "I'm going to get a closer look." "Be careful." He raised the binoculars to his eyes, adjusting the focus. The moment he got a clear view of the light, he jerked backwards like he'd been slapped. "Jesus!" He dropped the binoculars, blinking rapidly, his hands going to his face. "What happened? What's wrong?" I can't see. Everything's white. Everything's just white." I grabbed his shoulder. "Hector, talk to me. What do you mean you can't see?" "It's like someone shined a spotlight directly in my eyes, but it won't stop. Everything is white, completely white. I can't see anything." His eyes were open, moving frantically from side to side, but clearly not focusing on anything. I waved my hand in front of his face. No reaction. "Okay, just stay calm. It'll pass. It's probably just flash blindness from looking at something too bright." But I'd looked at the light too. Not through binoculars, but I'd looked at it. And while it was bright, it wasn't bright enough to cause that kind of reaction. Something else was happening here. I grabbed the radio handset. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. We have a situation at coordinates." I rattled off our GPS position. "My partner has sustained an eye injury, requesting immediate medical assistance." The radio crackled. "Unit 23, copy. Can you describe the injury?" He looked at a bright light through binoculars, and now he can't see. Everything appears white to him. Possible flash blindness. "Copy that. Dispatching EMS to your location. ETA approximately 20 minutes. Can you transport to meet them?" I looked at Hector, who was still blinking frantically, his face pale. Then I looked back at the light. It was still there, still hovering, still casting no shadows. "Negative. We need to stay at this location. We have an unidentified object here that needs to be documented." There was a pause. "Unit 23, say again? Unidentified object?" "That's correct. Bright light source, approximately 200 yards south of our current position, right at the fence line. No visible means of support, hovering 3 feet above ground level. It's what caused my partner's eye injury." Another pause. Longer this time. "Copy, Unit 23. Stay with your partner. Backup is en route along with EMS." I set down the handset and turned my attention back to Hector. "How are you doing? Any change?" "Still white. Nothing but white." "Austin, what the hell was that thing?" The second I focused on it, it was like it filled my entire field of vision. Like it was expanding, getting bigger, brighter, and then everything just went white. "I don't know, man. But help is coming. Just sit tight." I picked up the binoculars from where Hector had dropped them. Should I look? Every instinct said no, but I needed to document this, needed to understand what we were dealing with. I pointed the binoculars at the light, but didn't raise them to my eyes. Instead, I looked at the light with my naked eyes while holding the binoculars ready. The light was still there, still motionless, still casting no shadows. It had this quality like it was simultaneously very close and very far away, like your depth perception couldn't quite lock onto it. I made a decision. I raised the binoculars but didn't focus on the light directly. Instead, I focused on the area around it, the fence posts, the ground. Then, slowly, I shifted my view toward the light itself. The moment it came into the center of my vision through the binoculars, I felt it. A pressure in my head, like someone was pressing on my skull from the inside. And the light started to change. It wasn't just a ball of brightness anymore. There was structure inside it, patterns, geometric shapes that shifted and rearranged themselves too fast for my brain to process. And then I heard it. Not with my ears, but in my head. A sound, or something like a sound. A frequency that bypassed my hearing entirely and went straight into my consciousness. It was saying something, communicating something, but I couldn't understand it. It was like listening to a language that human vocal cords couldn't produce, and human brains weren't wired to comprehend. I lowered the binoculars quickly, my heart hammering. The pressure in my head faded, but didn't disappear completely. I could still feel it, a lingering presence, like something was aware I'd looked at it, aware I'd tried to understand it. "Did you look at it?" Hector asked. His eyes were still unfocused, still seeing nothing but white. "Yeah, for a second." "Don't do that again. Austin, I'm serious. That thing isn't just a light, it's something else, something that doesn't want to be looked at." Before I could respond, the light changed. It brightened suddenly, intensely, becoming almost like a small sun sitting there at ground level. The entire area lit up bright as midday, and I had to shield my eyes. Then, just as suddenly, it was gone. Not dimmed, not faded. Just gone. 1 second it was there, the next there was only darkness and the normal glow of our headlights. The absence of it was almost as shocking as its presence had been. The desert was dark again, quiet again, normal again. Like nothing had ever happened. Except Hector still couldn't see. "It's gone," I said. "Whatever it was, it's gone." "Can you see yet?" Hector asked, hope in his voice. "I can see fine, but you still can't?" "No, still white. Everything's still white." That's when I noticed something else. The radio was completely silent. Not static, not the usual background chatter from other units. Just silence. I picked up the handset. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23, radio check." Nothing. I checked the display. The radio showed it was on, showed it was set to the right channel, showed full signal strength, but no sound was coming out of it. "Radio's dead," I said. "Dead or just not working?" "Not working. It's powered on, but no audio." I tried my cell phone. Same thing. Screen showed full bars, but when I tried to call dispatch, nothing happened. The call wouldn't connect. We sat there in the darkness. Hector, unable to see, me, unable to communicate. Both of us acutely aware that we'd just witnessed something that shouldn't exist. Something that violated basic physics. Light that cast no shadows. Light that could blind you through binoculars but seemed almost ordinary to the naked eye. Light that could communicate directly into your consciousness. About 5 minutes later, Hector gasped. "I can see. It's fading. The white is fading." "What do you see?" "Shapes. Shadows. It's like my vision is coming back from the edges inward. Everything's still really washed out, but I can see shapes now." Another minute passed. Then, okay, I can see. Still seeing spots, but I can see. How long was I blind? I checked my watch. About 8 minutes. 8 minutes? Jesus. That felt like hours. The radio suddenly crackled to life. "Unit 23, this is dispatch. Do you copy?" I grabbed the handset. "Dispatch, we copy. Radio just came back online." "Unit 23, we've been trying to reach you for the past 8 minutes. You went completely silent. EMS is 2 minutes from your location. What's your status?" 8 minutes. 8 minutes of silence. The same amount of time that Hector had been blind. "Unit 23, my partner's vision is returning. The unidentified light is gone. We're stable here." "Copy that. Backup and EMS will be there shortly. Stand by." I looked at Hector. In the green glow of the dashboard lights, his face was pale. His eyes still not quite focused right. "You okay?" "No. Not even close. Austin, what did we just see?" "I don't know." "Don't give me that. You looked at it through the binoculars. You saw something. What was it?" I hesitated. How do you describe something that your brain couldn't fully process? There were patterns inside it, geometric shapes, and I heard something, or felt it, like it was trying to communicate. Communicate what? I don't know. I couldn't understand it. Hector was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "We need to report this. Exactly as it happened, no leaving anything out. They're going to think we're crazy. Maybe, but we both saw it. The radio has a recording system, right? It'll show that 8-minute gap. That's not something we can fake." He was right. Our radio system automatically recorded all transmissions and all periods when the radio was active. If there was an 8-minute gap, it would be in the data log. Proof that something had happened, even if we couldn't explain what. 2 vehicles arrived simultaneously about 10 minutes later. An ambulance and another border patrol unit. The EMTs checked Hector's eyes, did the standard tests. His pupils were responsive, no visible damage to the retinas, but they wanted to take him to the hospital for a more thorough examination. The other border patrol officers, 2 guys I knew casually, Johnson and Martinez, wanted to know what happened. I walked them over to where the light had been, shining my flashlight on the ground. "It was right here," I said. "About 3 feet off the ground, bright white light, size of a basketball, no shadows." Johnson looked at me. "No shadows? What do you mean, no shadows?" "I mean, our headlights were shining on everything around it, creating normal shadows, but the light itself wasn't casting any shadows. Like it wasn't physically here, even though we could see it clear as day." Martinez swept his flashlight across the ground. "Any marks? Burn patterns? Radiation?" "I don't know. We didn't get close enough to check. The thing blinded Hector when he looked at it through binoculars." "Flash blindness?" "That's what we thought. But it was temporary. 8 minutes and his vision came back." 8 minutes, Johnson repeated, glancing at Martinez. They exchanged a look I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. It's just, you're not the first to report something like this." "What do you mean?" Martinez shook his head. "Not here, not now, but yeah, you're not the first. Come find us when you're done with all the official stuff. We'll talk." They spent another 30 minutes documenting the scene, taking photos, checking for any physical evidence. They found nothing. No burn marks, no radiation spikes on their detector, no disturbed ground. Just empty desert that looked like empty desert. The EMTs cleared Hector to drive himself home, but recommended he see an ophthalmologist the next day. I followed him back to the station where we spent another 2 hours filing reports and giving statements to our supervisor, a gruff career officer named Dale Murphy. Murphy listened to our account with an expression that never changed. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You boys been getting enough sleep?" "Sir, we know how this sounds," I started. "Do you? Because it sounds to me like you're telling me you saw a UFO that blinded your partner and shut down your radio for 8 minutes. That's what you're telling me?" "We're telling you what happened," Hector said firmly. "Check the radio logs. You'll see the gap. 8 minutes of dead air during a time when we were supposed to be in continuous contact with dispatch." Murphy turned to his computer, pulled up the radio system logs, and scrolled through the data. His expression changed slightly. "Huh, there's a gap. From 1:34 a.m. to 1:42 a.m. 8 minutes where your unit shows active but no transmissions, no received messages, nothing." "That's because the radio wasn't working," I said, even though it showed full signal strength. "Or," Murphy suggested, "there was a system glitch. A temporary malfunction that happened to coincide with you seeing a bright light that you can't explain." "What about my eyes?" Hector asked. "System glitch didn't blind me." Murphy sighed. "Look, I'm not saying you didn't see something. I'm not saying you're making this up. But I need you to understand how this looks from an administrative perspective. If I file this report as written, it goes up the chain to regional, then to headquarters. And somewhere along that chain, someone's going to question your fitness for duty. Someone's going to wonder if you boys are stable enough to be out there in the dark with weapons and authority. So, what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying maybe we describe this as an equipment malfunction and a flash blindness incident from an unknown source. We leave out the part about it being a hovering ball of light that defies physics. That way, you two keep your jobs and your reputations, and I don't have to explain to my superiors why my officers are reporting UFOs. Hector and I looked at each other. On one hand, Murphy was right. Reporting this truthfully could damage our careers. On the other hand, lying about it felt wrong. Something significant had happened out there. Something that deserved to be documented accurately. No, I said. We report it exactly as it happened. Let them question our fitness if they want. Let them do their investigations. But we tell the truth. Murphy studied me for a long moment. Then he looked at Hector. You feel the same way? Yeah. We report the truth. All right, your funeral. Murphy turned back to his computer. I'll file it as written, but don't be surprised when you get called in for a psych eval. We left his office around 5 a.m. The sun was starting to lighten the eastern sky. Hector and I stood in the parking lot, exhausted but too wired to sleep. You talked to Johnson and Martinez? Hector asked. They said you're not the first to see something like this. Not yet, but I will. Good, because I need to know we're not crazy. I need to know other people have experienced this. We're not crazy, Hector. That thing was real. We both saw it. The radio log proves something happened. He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. The same doubt I was feeling. When something defies everything you think you know about reality, it's hard not to question your own sanity. I drove home, crawled into bed next to my sleeping wife, and lay there staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. That shadowless light hovering at the fence line. Those geometric patterns shifting inside it when viewed through binoculars. That presence, that awareness, that sense of being observed and studied by something utterly alien. I didn't sleep at all that day. I caught maybe 2 hours of restless sleep before my phone woke me at noon. It was Murphy. Forsyth, get down here. We need to talk. I just filed a complete report 4 hours ago. What else do you need? Just get down here, now. I drove back to the station, my head foggy from lack of sleep. When I walked into Murphy's office, I found him sitting with 2 men I didn't recognize. They were wearing plain clothes, but had that unmistakable government agent look. Dark slacks, button-down shirts, serious expressions. Officer Forsyth, have a seat, Murphy said. These are Agents Randall and Kovic from DHS Office of Intelligence and Analysis. I sat down, suddenly very awake. DHS Intelligence? For an equipment malfunction? Agent Randall, the older of the two, maybe 50 with gray at his temples, spoke first. Officer Forsyth, we're here because your report from last night raised some flags. We'd like to go over the incident with you in detail. I already filed a complete report. We know. We've read it. But we need to hear it from you directly. Walk us through exactly what happened from the moment you first saw the light. So I did. I told them everything again, every detail I could remember. The shadowless light, Hector's blindness, the radio silence, the geometric patterns I'd seen through the binoculars, the sense of communication or awareness. They listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, Agent Kovic, younger and more intense, leaned forward. You said you felt like the light was communicating. Can you elaborate on that? It wasn't words. It wasn't language, at least not like any language I've ever heard. It was more like a frequency, a vibration, directly in my mind. Did you understand what it was trying to communicate? No. It was completely alien, like trying to read a book written in symbols you've never seen before. And the patterns you saw inside the light. Can you describe them more specifically? Geometric shapes, triangles, hexagons, patterns that looked like they were three-dimensional even though I was looking at them from one angle. They moved and shifted and reconfigured themselves, fast, too fast for me to focus on any single shape. The agents exchanged glances. Randall said, "Officer Forsyth, what I'm about to tell you is sensitive. Your report isn't the first of its kind we've received from this sector. Over the past 18 months, there have been 6 similar incidents. Different officers, different locations, but the same basic phenomenon. Bright lights that defy normal physical properties, electronic malfunctions, missing time or communication gaps, and in 2 previous cases, temporary blindness after direct observation." I felt my stomach tighten. 6 incidents. Why haven't we been briefed on this? Because we don't know what we're dealing with, Kovic said bluntly. We don't know if it's a natural phenomenon, foreign technology, or something else entirely. What we do know is that it's happening repeatedly in a specific geographic area, and it's affecting federal officers in the performance of their duties. What do you want from me? Cooperation, Randall said. We're conducting an investigation. We need you to report any future sightings immediately, document everything, and maintain discretion about what you saw. No discussing this with anyone except authorized personnel. What about Hector, my partner? He'll receive the same briefing. In fact, he's being interviewed right now by our colleagues. I thought about this. You're not questioning whether what we saw was real. No, Randall confirmed. We believe you saw exactly what you reported. The question is what it was and where it came from. And you don't know? If we did, we wouldn't be here. They gave me a card with a phone number, made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, and sent me home. I was supposed to take the next 2 days off, standard procedure after any incident involving potential injury. But all I could think about was what Johnson and Martinez had said. You're not the first. I called Johnson that evening. You said I should come find you, that we weren't the first to see something like this. There was a pause. You get visited by the suits yet? Yeah, this afternoon. DHS Intelligence. Same ones who talked to us. Randall and Kovic? That's them. Meet me at Charlie's bar in an hour. Come alone. Charlie's was a dive bar on the edge of town where a lot of border patrol and law enforcement hung out. I found Johnson in a corner booth, nursing a beer. He gestured for me to sit. You talked to Hector? He asked. Not since this morning. Why? He got the same visit you did. Same speech. Cooperate, document, maintain discretion. They're building a file on this thing, Austin, whatever it is. So, tell me, you said Martinez and you weren't surprised when I told you about the shadowless light. Why? Johnson took a long drink of his beer. Because we saw something similar, about 6 months ago. Different location, but same sector. We were checking sensors near the border fence when we saw this light. Bright, white, hovering maybe 6 feet off the ground. We approached it, and that's when things got weird. Weird how? The light started moving, not like something being carried or a drone flying. It moved in ways that defied physics. Right angles at high speed, instant acceleration and deceleration. And when we tried to film it on our dash cam, the camera just showed static. But we could see it clear as day with our eyes. Did it affect you? Your equipment? Our truck died. Just like that, engine cut out completely. We were dead in the water for about 10 minutes. Then the light shot straight up into the sky and disappeared, and the truck started working again like nothing had happened. Did you report it? Yeah. Got the same response you did. Filed a report, got visited by agents, told to keep quiet and document any future incidents. They told us there had been other sightings but didn't give us details. I leaned back, processing this. So this is happening regularly, multiple officers, multiple incidents, and the government knows but isn't doing anything about it? Oh, they're doing something. They're documenting it, investigating it, trying to figure out what it is, but they're also keeping it quiet. Can't have Border Patrol agents talking about UFOs, right? Bad for public confidence. Is that what you think it is? A UFO? Johnson shrugged. What else could it be? It's unidentified. It flies, or hovers, or whatever you want to call what it does, and it's definitely an object. So, yeah, technically, it's a UFO. Whether that means aliens from another planet or some kind of secret military technology or a natural phenomenon we don't understand yet, I don't know. The agent said there have been 6 incidents in 18 months. Do you know about any of the others? I know about 3. Us, you, and Hector, and a guy named Patterson who works a different sector. He saw one up close, got within maybe 20 feet of it. Said it made a sound, a humming that he could feel in his bones. He tried to touch it, and his hand went numb. Took 3 hours before he could feel his fingers again. Jesus. Yeah, whatever these things are, they're not benign. They're affecting people, affecting equipment, and they keep coming back. I finished my beer, mind racing. What do you think they want, these lights, these objects, whatever they are? If they're intelligently controlled, if they're appearing repeatedly in the same area, they must want something. That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Johnson signaled the bartender for another round. Patterson thinks they're surveilling the border. Like maybe they're interested in human migration patterns or national security infrastructure. Martinez thinks they might be some kind of foreign drone technology. China or Russia testing our response capabilities. Me? I think there's something else entirely. Something that's been here longer than any of us. What makes you say that? Because I did some research. Started digging through archives, old reports, newspaper articles. You know what I found? This area has been weird for a long time. Way before Border Patrol was even a thing. Native American tribes have stories about lights in the desert that don't belong. Spanish explorers documented strange phenomena. Even early American settlers reported seeing things that didn't make sense. So, you think this is some kind of historical phenomenon? Something that has always been here? I think this place is thin. The barrier between normal and whatever lies beyond normal. And sometimes things come through. Or maybe they've always been here, and we're just noticing them more now because we have sensors and cameras and thermal imaging that can detect them. It was an unsettling thought. That we were living and working in a place where reality wasn't quite solid, where things that shouldn't exist could appear and disappear at will. I went home that night with more questions than answers. My wife, Karen, could tell something was bothering me, but I couldn't tell her what. The NDA I'd signed was legally binding, but more than that, I didn't want to drag her into this. Didn't want her lying awake at night worrying about what I might encounter out there in the darkness. The next day, I got a call from Hector. You free to talk? Yeah, what's up? I went to the ophthalmologist like the EMTs recommended. They did a complete examination, eyes are fine. No damage, no abnormalities. But Austin, the doctor asked me something weird. What? He asked me if I'd been exposed to high-intensity electromagnetic fields. Said the temporary blindness I experienced was consistent with optical nerve disruption from EM exposure. But he couldn't figure out how I'd been exposed to that kind of field strength out in the middle of the desert. Electromagnetic fields. That tracked with what Johnson had said about the truck dying. what I'd experienced with the radio and phone going silent. Whatever these lights were, they generated powerful electromagnetic fields that could disrupt electronics and apparently even affect human nervous systems. Did you tell him about the light? No. I just said I didn't know what I'd been exposed to. But it got me thinking, Austin, if these things are generating that kind of EM field, there should be a way to detect them, to track them, maybe even predict when and where they're going to appear. How would we do that? I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out. Because I'll be damned if I'm going to spend the rest of my career jumping at shadows, wondering if that thing is going to show up again and finish what it started. Hector's determination was infectious. I felt the same way. We needed to understand this phenomenon, needed to take control of the situation rather than just being victims of it. Over the next week, I dove into research. I read everything I could find about electromagnetic phenomena, UAPs as they were calling them now instead of UFOs, historical sightings in the Southwest. I talked to Johnson and Martinez, got details on their encounter. I even reached out to some online forums where people discussed unexplained phenomena, though I was careful not to reveal my identity or specific details of what I'd seen. What I learned was disturbing. The shadowless light Hector and I had encountered fit a pattern. There were reports from all over the world of similar objects. Lights that defied normal physics. Lights that affected electronics and people. Lights that seemed to be intelligently controlled but whose purpose remained unknown. And they were appearing more frequently. Whatever timeline they operated on, whatever agenda they had, it seemed to be accelerating. I was scheduled to go back on patrol the following week. Same sector, same shift, same partner. The night before my first shift back, I barely slept. I kept thinking about that light, about the patterns I'd seen inside it, about the sense of communication and awareness. What if it came back? What if next time it didn't just blind Hector temporarily? What if it did something worse? But I'd signed up for this job knowing it could be dangerous. I just never imagined the danger would come from something that shouldn't exist. My first shift back was tense. Hector and I were both on edge, hyper alert to every distant light, every unusual shadow. But the night was quiet, just normal patrol work. Check sensors, watch for movement, document anything unusual. By 3 a.m., we'd seen nothing out of the ordinary. Think it was a one-time thing? Hector asked, as we drove along a ridge that gave us a good view of the border fence below. I doubt it. Johnson said they saw something similar. So did Patterson. This is happening regularly. Yeah, but maybe not to the same people. Maybe once it's done whatever it does to you, it moves on to someone else. I wanted to believe that, but something told me we weren't done with the shadowless light, or it wasn't done with us. 3 nights later, I was proven right. We were in a different part of the sector, about 15 miles east of where we'd seen the first light. It was around 2 a.m., and we just finished checking a sensor alert that turned out to be a false alarm. As we drove back toward the main access road, Hector suddenly grabbed my arm. Stop. Stop the truck. I hit the brakes. What? What is it? He pointed ahead. There, about a quarter mile in front of us, right in the middle of the dirt road, was a light. Different from the first one. This one was larger, maybe the size of a compact car, and it was on the ground rather than hovering. But it had that same quality, that same wrongness, that same sense of existing slightly outside normal reality. Is that the same one? Hector asked. I don't know. It's bigger, but it feels the same. We sat there for a moment, neither of us wanting to get closer but both knowing we had to. This was our job. Document. Observe. Report. Call it in, I said. Hector reached for the radio, but before he could key the mic, the light changed. It brightened suddenly, intensely, and started moving. Not toward us, but parallel to the road, moving fast. Maybe 40 or 50 miles per hour, gliding smoothly across the rough desert terrain like it was on rails. "It's running," Hector said, "or leading us somewhere." I made a split-second decision and followed it. I accelerated, keeping pace with the light as it moved east. It maintained the same distance ahead of us, never getting closer, never falling behind. Like it was aware of us and deliberately staying just out of reach. "This is insane," Hector muttered. "We're chasing a UFO. We're documenting an unidentified object, that's all." The light led us about 3 miles east, then suddenly stopped. We stopped too, maintaining about 200 yards distance. For a long moment, nothing happened. The light just sat there, pulsing gently, casting that same shadowless glow across the desert. Then it started to rise. Slowly at first, maybe a foot per second, ascending straight up. We got out of the truck to watch. As it rose, other lights appeared. 3 of them coming from different directions, converging on the first light. They met about 500 feet up, forming a triangle formation, and then they all shot straight up into the night sky and disappeared. The whole thing took maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds of watching something that shouldn't exist perform maneuvers that defied everything I knew about physics. Hector and I stood there in silence for a full minute after they vanished. Finally, he said, "Tell me you saw that." "I saw it." "Tell me our cameras got that." I checked the dash cam. It was recording, but when I reviewed the footage, it showed nothing. Just empty road, empty sky. The lights didn't appear on the recording at all. "Nothing," I said. "Cameras show nothing." "Of course they don't." Hector laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Why would they? That would be too easy." We reported the incident immediately. Within an hour, Agents Randall and Kovic were on site with some additional personnel I didn't recognize. They interviewed us separately, took statements, examined our equipment. The senior agent, Randall, seemed particularly interested in the fact that multiple lights had appeared and formed a formation. "This is the first time we've had a report of multiple objects interacting," he said. "All previous sightings have been single objects operating independently." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means they're coordinating. Whatever these objects are, they're working together towards some common purpose." "And what purpose is that?" Randall didn't answer. He just thanked me for the report and told me to maintain discretion. Over the next 2 months, the sightings increased dramatically. Not just for Hector and me, but across the entire sector. Multiple units reported seeing lights, experiencing equipment malfunctions, documenting unexplained phenomena. It got to the point where it wasn't unusual anymore. It was just part of the job. You go out on patrol, you might see something weird. Document it, report it, move on. But for me, it became an obsession. I couldn't let it go. I needed to understand what these things were and what they wanted. I started carrying additional equipment on patrol. A handheld EM field detector, a digital recorder, a notebook where I documented every detail of every sighting. Hector noticed. "You're going to drive yourself crazy with this." "I'm already crazy. I'm chasing lights in the desert that don't show up on camera and defy the laws of physics. Can't get much crazier than that." "You can. Trust me. I've seen guys go down this rabbit hole and not come back." But I couldn't stop. Every sighting raised new questions. Why this area? Why Border Patrol officers specifically? Why now, with increased frequency? What was the purpose of the electromagnetic disruption? Were they studying us, testing us, preparing for something? In late June, about 2 months after our second encounter, I got a call from Agent Randall. "Officer Forsyth, we need to meet, in person, tomorrow if possible." We met at a diner in Tucson. Randall was there with Kovic and a third person I hadn't met before, a woman in her 40s who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Lancaster from the Department of Energy. "Officer Forsyth," Dr. Lancaster began, "Agent Randall has been sharing your detailed reports with me. Your observations about electromagnetic field patterns, the geometric shapes you saw through binoculars, your theories about frequency-based communication. It's impressive work. Thank you, but I'm just trying to understand what I'm seeing. That's exactly what we need. People who are willing to look at this phenomenon analytically, rather than just documenting and moving on." She opened a laptop and pulled up a map. "Look at this. These are all the confirmed sightings in your sector over the past 6 months." The map showed dozens of points, scattered across about 200 square miles of desert. But they weren't random. There was a pattern. The sightings clustered around certain areas, forming what looked like a grid. "We think they're mapping," Dr. Lancaster said. "Whatever these objects are, they're conducting a systematic survey of this area, the electromagnetic pulses you've documented, the geometric patterns, the coordinated movements. It all suggests a deliberate, organized effort to collect data. Data about what? That's what we're trying to determine. Could be geological data, mapping underground structures or mineral deposits. Could be surveillance, monitoring human activity patterns. Could be something else entirely." "You think they're from somewhere else," I said. "Not human technology." Dr. Lancaster and the agents exchanged glances. Finally, Randall said, "We think that's one possible explanation. But without more data, without direct contact or recovered materials, we can't say definitively." "What about the effects on people? The blindness, the EM exposure, the sense of communication?" "That's what concerns us most," Dr. Lancaster admitted. "These objects aren't just observing passively. They're interacting with human beings in ways that could be dangerous. The EM fields they generate are powerful enough to cause temporary nervous system disruption. If someone were exposed to that field for an extended period, the effects could be more severe. So, what do? We keep watching, keep documenting, and try to find a way to communicate. If these objects are intelligently controlled, if they're capable of responding to human behavior, then maybe we can establish some kind of dialogue." It sounded naive to me, but I didn't say so. Instead, I asked, "What about the military? Aren't they involved in this?" "The military is aware," Kovic said carefully. "But this falls under civilian jurisdiction since it's occurring in non-military airspace and affecting civilian federal employees. DHS has the lead, working in coordination with DOE and other agencies. They wanted me to continue my documentation efforts but with more sophisticated equipment. They provided me with an upgraded EM detector, a better camera system that they claimed might be able to capture images that standard cameras missed, and detailed protocols for documenting any future encounters." "One more thing," Dr. Lancaster said as we were wrapping up. "If you have another close encounter, if one of these objects approaches you directly, don't try to touch it or interact with it physically. The EM field alone could cause serious injury at close range." Noted. I left the meeting with more equipment and more questions. The government was taking this seriously now. They had scientists involved, multiple agencies coordinating. But they still didn't know what these things were or what they wanted. 2 weeks later, I got my answer, or at least the beginning of one. It was July 8th, around 1 a.m. Hector and I were patrolling a remote section of the border fence when we saw it. Not a single light this time, but 5 of them, arranged in a perfect pentagon formation, hovering about 100 feet off the ground. "Call it in," I told Hector, as I grabbed the new camera equipment. While he radioed dispatch, I started filming. Through the enhanced camera system, I could see details that weren't visible to the naked eye. The lights weren't solid objects. They were more like windows, openings into something else. Through them, I could see structures, or what looked like structures. Geometric patterns similar to what I'd seen through the binoculars months earlier, but clearer now, more defined. And I could see movement, shapes moving within the lights, silhouettes that were almost human but not quite. Too tall, proportions slightly wrong, moving in ways that seemed unnatural. "Austin." Hector's voice was tight. "The lights are descending." He was right. The pentagon formation was lowering slowly toward the ground. I kept filming, capturing everything, even as my heart hammered in my chest. The formation descended until it was maybe 30 feet off the ground, then stopped. The lights brightened, and that's when I felt it. The same presence I'd felt during our first encounter. Awareness, intelligence, and this time, communication. Not words, not language, but information flowing directly into my mind. Images, concepts, understanding. They weren't from another planet. They were from here, from Earth, but not from our Earth. From somewhere adjacent to it. A reality that existed parallel to ours, separated by some kind of dimensional barrier. And the barrier was thinning. Had been thinning for decades, maybe centuries. These lights, these objects, were manifestations of that other reality bleeding through into ours. They weren't hostile. They weren't invading. They were just existing in a space that was becoming increasingly shared. And they were trying to understand us the same way we were trying to understand them. The information came fast, overwhelming, more than my brain could process. I stumbled backward, dropping the camera. Hector caught me, held me steady. "Austin! Austin, talk to me!" The lights ascended rapidly and disappeared. The presence faded. I was left standing in the desert, Hector gripping my shoulders, trying to make sense of what I'd just experienced. "I'm okay," I managed to say. "I'm okay. But Hector, I think I understand now. I think I know what they are." "What? What are they?" "They're us. Or something like us. From somewhere else. Somewhere that's getting closer to here. And they're just as confused and curious about us as we are about them." I filed a report about that encounter. The most detailed report I'd ever written. I described the communication, the information transfer, the understanding that came from it. I expected skepticism, maybe even ridicule. Instead, Dr. Lancaster called me personally. "Officer Forsyth, your report is consistent with a theory we've been developing, interdimensional bleed-through. It would explain why these objects don't show up on conventional recording equipment, why they defy normal physics, why they generate such powerful EM fields. They're not entirely in our reality." So, what happens now? Now, we learn to coexist. These manifestations are becoming more frequent, not less. Whatever barrier separated these realities is breaking down. Within a few years, encounters like yours might become commonplace. We need to be prepared for that. We need people who've had direct experience, who can help others understand that these phenomena aren't threats. They're just evidence that reality is more complex than we thought. That was 8 months ago. Since then, I've had 4 more direct encounters with the lights. Each time, I learn a little more, understand a little better. The communication is getting clearer, easier, like we're both learning each other's language. Hector still patrols with me. He's had his own encounters, his own moments of understanding. We don't talk about it much, but we don't need to. We both know what's happening. We both know where this is headed. The barrier is thinning. Every day, every week, it gets a little thinner. And when it finally breaks down completely, when these two realities fully merge, the world is going to change in ways most people can't imagine. But I'll be ready. We'll be ready. Because we've been preparing for this since that first night when we saw a shadowless light at the border fence, and everything we thought we knew about reality started to unravel. I still work border patrol, still drive those same roads, patrol those same sections of fence. But now I understand that I'm not just watching for people trying to cross a border. I'm watching for the moment when the border between realities finally dissolves completely. And I think that moment is coming soon. The lights are appearing more frequently now. Multiple sightings every night, not just in our sector but all along the southern border, and according to Dr. Lancaster around the world. Other countries are experiencing the same phenomenon. Other governments are coming to the same conclusions we have. Something is happening. Something fundamental is changing in the structure of reality itself. And those of us who've had these encounters, who've communicated with whatever exists on the other side of that thinning barrier, we're going to be the ones who help humanity understand and adapt. I don't know if that makes me special or just unlucky. Some days it feels like a privilege, being given insight into something most people don't even know exists. Other days it feels like a burden, carrying knowledge that I can't fully share, watching for something I can't prevent or control. But I keep doing the job, keep patrolling the border, keep watching for the lights. Because someone has to. Someone has to be the witness, the documenter, the translator when these two realities finally become one. And if nothing else, at least I know the truth now. That shadowless light at the border fence wasn't a threat. It was a message. A message that we're not alone in reality. That there are others out there just as real as we are, just on the other side of a barrier that's getting thinner every day. Soon there won't be a barrier at all. Soon we'll all see what I've seen. And I hope, when that day comes, that humanity is ready for it. Because ready or not, it's coming.